Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 3 of What If Ash Was Betrayed and Got a Harem. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content, and also go and support the author, link in description. The genetic Pokemon's words caught Ash's attention as he saw the slight worried look on his face. As I conducted my sweep of the area, I found several signatures with dark intentions, Mewtwo said. The problem is, every time I tried to pinpoint the location of the signatures, they seemed to vanish as if they were never there. One signature in particular was extremely dark and filled with nothing but malice, but it too evades my sights and powers. Mewtwo crossed his arms as he floated off the ground slightly. His words actually surprised both Pikachu and Lucario. Who can hide themselves from Mewtwo so easily? Ash nodded slightly at his Pokemon's words and could understand why he's so worried. It's not too difficult to hide one's presence, but that would require the ability to control your aura or psychic abilities, even if it's just to hide it. Also, to be able to hide yourself from Mewtwo, not only an extremely powerful psychic Pokemon, but one that has trained with him so he knows how to bypass such a trick, takes a lot of control and skill. Mewtwo, can you teleport the others here? I have a job for them all, Ash asked his legendary, who nodded in response. Why I removed Psychic? You already established that Ash is talking to Mewtwo and that Mewtwo is a psychic type. Mewtwo's eyes glowed a light blue color before he spread his arms and 5 luxury balls appeared around him in a flash of light. The balls opened up and in a flash, 5 Pokemon appeared, one of them being Diancie, who twirled in excitement before giggling. Ash looked at the 6 extremely powerful Pokemon before grinning. Alright guys, I have a job for you all. A few miles away on a dock, a boat has just arrived and began to let its passengers off. A voice on a loudspeaker went off as people began to get off. This is your captain. We have arrived at our destination, and I hope you all enjoy the tournament. Thank you for riding the SS Lugia. Among the passengers exiting the boat, a young girl with honey-colored hair grinned. She had short hair and wore a red fedora with a black stripe on top of it. She had a bright, red dress with a yellow collar, a black top underneath, a red waistcoat with a blue ribbon tie around her neck, and brown boots to finish her look. Her warm, blue eyes looked focused as she made her way into the city. Walking alongside her was a tall Delphox with her arms swinging at her sides. The young girl was Serena Yvonne, a famous Pokemon performer in the Kalos region. She and Ash had met up in said region during his travels and actually traveled together for a while before going their separate ways. In fact, they knew each other back when they were kids before she had to move away. After meeting up and separating, they kept in touch as they stirred the other on in completing their goals. Looking to her Delphox, Serena smiled. Well Delphox, Ash is here on this island somewhere. Let's go secure a place for us to stay before we go greet him. Delphox gave a cry of agreement as they made their way into the city. I'll get you Ash, and when I do, I'll finally tell you how I feel. Ash made his way into the clearing with everyone else, while deep in thought. Okay, so Mewtwo and the others are going execute the plan. I will also need to be ready to act at a moment's notice. I just hope I don't regret this. Before he could ponder any more, his instincts kicked in as they warned him of danger closing in. Turning quickly, Ash swung his left leg out with great force. The swing blocked an incoming flying kick, courtesy of Mia. Pulling back, Ash swung his other leg at Mia, who pushed off and twisted her body to dodge the blow. She landed beside Ash and quickly tried to leg sweep the champion to throw him off balance. Sensing her plan, Ash jumped over her attack and back-flipped a safe distance from her. The two were getting ready to charge at each other, but were interrupted by Mike, who jumped into the fray by getting in a grappling match with Mia. Mia leaned back and kicked outward, but Mike jumped back and grabbed her leg before tossing her to the side. They charged at each other once more and their fists collided with a powerful force. They both jumped away from each other just in time to dodge Ash, who attacked them both with an axe kick. All 3 fighters gained grins on their faces as they charged at one another in a powerful 3-way collision of force. While the 3 trainers duked it out, the surrounding Pokemon, ironically, were the ones cheering the battle on. Suzaku and Tai merely watched the battle as they made a bet on who would be the first one out and who would win. Suzaku said that Mike would be the first one out and that Ash would win, whereas Tai said that Mia would be the first one out and said that Mike would win. Back in the city, Delia Ketchum is walking down the street with her trusty Mr. Mime, who she had nicknamed Mimey, and an orange-furred Delcatty. The orange fur indicated that the Delcatty was shiny. She found Delcatty as a young Skitty while exploring the Hoenn regions for any signs of her son. The Skitty was apparently a troublemaker. She constantly played pranks on the other Pokémon of the forest and would steal food from traveling trainers. By the time Delia saw her, Skitty had eaten most of her Pokémon food and sped off. The next day, she found Skitty again, but this time, she was surrounded by 4 Vigoroth, who were apparently angered by some prank that Skitty played on them if the wet fur had anything to do with it. After sending out Mr. Mime and giving them a warning, the Vigoroths attacked. The battle did not last long as Delia sent the Vigoroths running. After tending to Skitty's wounds, Delia left her some food and made her way to leave. Skitty stopped her after a few seconds of her walking away. Skitty wanted to join her. After catching the cute cat, Skitty quickly proved her worth by winning her many battles, and it wasn't much longer until Skitty became the powerful Delcatty that she is now. After a long, early training session, Delia was hoping that she could find Ash so she could speak with him. I have to make amends, no matter what. I have to get my son back. Delia thought, determined. She was ready to whatever it took to gain her son's love and forgiveness again. Delcatty chimed out in encouragement to its trainer's determination while Mr. Mime gave her a warm smile. Smiling at her 2 Pokémon, Delia thanked them as she made her way to the surrounding forests. As they made their way through the forests, Delcatty suddenly stopped walking as her ears began twitching. What's wrong, Delcatty? Do you hear something? Delia asked. Instead of responding, Delcatty turned left and took off deeper into the forest as fast as she could. Delia and Mr. Mime quickly took off after the prim Pokémon. Delcatty, wait up. As they ran, Delia began to hear shouting and what sounded like explosions. She saw Delcatty stop by a big bush and she sighed in relief. When Delia and Mr. Mime arrived, they saw a girl wearing a trench coat dodging a dark pulse that was fired from an oddly colored Umbreon. Delia quickly recognized the girl from the Elite Four listings and from her arrival on the island with that Satoshi guy. It was Alex Rain, an Elite Four member of the Kalos region. The region her son is champion over. Maybe she knows where Ash is. Delia thought as hope quickly filled her heart. Before Delia could walk out and ask her, the young girl called out. I know you're there, so you might as well come out of hiding. Alex knew she was being watched. After all, being around dark types and constantly being in their setting, you tend to learn how to trust that sixth sense that tells you that you're being watched. Delia walked out from her hiding place while scratching the back of her head in embarrassment. Next to her were her 2 Pokémon who were looking ready in case a battle broke out. I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to spy on you. Delcatty ran off and I chased after her. It was most likely the sounds of your training drew her to you. Nodding her head, Alex accepted her apology. It's fine. Umbreon and I were just getting some morning exercise. Umbreon called out to his name being called while never taking his eyes off of Delia. Ash's mother decided to introduce herself. My name is Delia Ketchum, she said, pointing to herself before addressing her 2 Pokémon. And these are 2 of my Pokémon, Mr. Mime and Delcatty. I know who you are, Miss Ketchum, Alex responded. My name is Alex Rain and I'm the Dark Specialist of the Kalos Elite Four. Over there is my partner and friend, Umbreon. Umbreon nodded his head in greeting, never moving his eyes from the new arrivals. Delia decided to ask the question that currently preyed on her mind. Excuse me, Miss Rain. Just Alex, please, Alex interrupted with a small smile. Quote. Alex, I was wondering if you knew where I could find Ash, Delia asked in as calm of a tone as she could, but you could still hear the sadness that laced her voice when Ash was mentioned. Could you blame the woman, though? Ash was still her son, regardless of what happened. The smile that was present on Alex's face was quickly replaced by a frown at the question. Listen, Mrs. Ketchum, while I don't dislike you, it doesn't mean I don't trust you. You hurt Ash more than you could ever realize. I owe Ash everything and won't betray his trust by sending that someone who hurt him straight to him. Delia, while saddened at the girl's response, couldn't help her confusion. Why would she owe Ash everything? Seeing the questioning look on her face, Alex elaborated for her. I was an orphan. I don't know who my parents are. I don't know if they abandoned me or if something else happened. I don't even know if they loved me, she began. She took a sharp breath before continuing. Anyway, the orphanage I stayed in was a horrible place. We were fed cold and rotten food. The beds were old and destroyed, like they picked them from the trash. We were abused and neglected. Some even died in that horrible building. Delia gasped at the horrible things that place did. To children no less. We were also trained to fight both people and Pokemon alike, to be able to eliminate anyone without a problem. As it turned out, the orphanage was owned by Team Rocket, Alex continued as Delia's eyes widened slightly. Kids who proved they were strong were adopted by Rocket members and taken away to join their ranks. We didn't know that, we thought they were saved by a loving family. After 17 years of living in that hell, the building was suddenly under attack. Using this confusion, me and some of the older kids took as many of the younger kids we could and tried to escape. We soon ran into our savior as he just took out 3 of the caretakers. Our savior was Ash and his Pokemon. Delia's eyes widened even more, any further and they might fall out of their sockets. A few had managed to escape but thanks to Ash's efforts, most of the Rocket members were captured. After checking on all of us, Ash took us to the hospital to be checked up on before coming to me a bit later. We spent some time together while at the hospital, playing games or showing me his Pokemon. We got along so well, that when it came for me to be discharged from the hospital, he offered me a place at his side as he showed me a piece of paper. A huge smile crossed Alex's face as some tears fell from her eyes. It was a paper that meant I was officially adopted. Ash was the one who signed it. I was adopted by Ash Ketchum and was officially made his little sister. Delia gasped for what felt like the 6th time in the past couple of minutes. Her son, the one she raised, alone for the most part, not only attacked a building filled to the brim with Team Rocket members, but also saved so many children in the process. He even gave this lonely girl a loving family. The word, proud, couldn't even fathom at how she felt towards her son. From then on, Ash trained me and helped me grow stronger and more trusting toward the world around me. He helped me see the beauty that life possesses instead of just the ugly. Eventually, Ash asked me to become one of his Elite Four members and I instantly agreed. So as you can see, Mrs. Ketchum, I owe my brother everything in my life. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him, so I will not betray the trust he's given me. Delia, while upset, realized that no matter what she did or said, this girl won't tell her anything, not that she could blame her. Before Delia could speak, a cruel chuckle echoed through the trees around them. What a heartwarming, tear-jerking story. My favorite part was about the weak kids being abused, a male voice spoke out. Delia and Alex looked around, trying to find out where it was coming from. Mr. Mime tried using his psychic energy to sense the man out, but got no such luck. All he felt was a cold sensations making its way to his stomach at what he did sense. Yet I must say that the kids' deaths was a close second, you should have given more details about it. Okay, enough. Alex yelled in frustration. Show yourself right now. Her response was a shadow ball being launched from behind the trees to her right. She quickly leaned back, dodging the attack. The attack impacted with the ground behind them, causing an explosion and kicking a thick cloud of dust. Delia and Alex covered their faces to avoid anything from getting into their eyes. Delcatty growled menacingly and Mr. Mime began to shakily get between Delia and the dust cloud. Alex and Umbreon stared where the shadow ball came from with narrowed eyes. Alex's hand unconsciously grabbed a Pokeball from her waist. The sunlight that lit up the morning was suddenly darkened from the clouds covering it. It was as if the sun became scared of what was to come. Slowly, a figure made its way from the dissipating cloud of dust. The figure wore a pure black cloak, with the hood over his head. His hands were covered by black leather gloves. His eyes were a deep blood red with cold black pupils that stared into their very souls. The man began to chuckle as he spun around like a dancer to a silent tune and before they knew it, a Pokemon appeared behind him. At least, they thought it was a Pokemon. The creature was the size of a 13-year-old child. It had a purple body, with white pupilless eyes. It had sharp claws and a long tail that curled around its feet. It had no lips, but possessed razor-sharp teeth. There were holes on the sides of its head where ears should have been. It had a grin on its nose-less face. The man continued to chuckle at the shocked faces of his audience before he finally stopped spinning and addressed them. Now my darlings, let's see what you are made of. At his words, the creature vanished as it took off towards the shocked group. Delcatty and Mr. Mime were easily tossed to the sides and slammed into trees, causing both to yell out in pain. Before Alex and Delia could utter a single word, they were both grabbed by their throats and slammed into trees and were held there. How's that for a lovely game, darlings Tilda? The man chuckled as the creature's white eyes began to glow yellow. Try not to scream too loud. Suddenly a shock of electricity traveled from the creature's shoulders to its victims, electrocuting them. Alex, throughout all the pain, scanned the area the best she could. Where is Umbreon? Alex thought frantically, as the electricity finally stopped. Using this relapse, she scanned the area faster until her eyes landed on the man. Just looking at him caused shivers to go up her spine. The man saw the look in her eyes and chuckled again. By the way, Miss Rain, if you're looking for your dear Umbreon, then look no further, he said as he pulled what looked like black and red chains. As he yanked it, a red glow took place as a yell of a pain erupted through the clearing. The one yelling in pain was Umbreon, who was yanked from a tree above the man. Hearing Umbreon yell out in pain caused Alex to gain renewed strength and struggle more fiercely to free herself from the strange creature's powerful grip, only serving to aggravate the creature at her attempt and tighten its fingers. This action caused her struggling to slow before coming to a complete stop as she tried to regain her breath. Fine then, if you want your Umbreon back so much then take it, the man said before grabbing Umbreon's motionless body and tossing him towards the teary-eyed trainer. I'm done with it anyway. The creature let go of Alex and Delia and vanished as the two women fell to the floor. Alex quickly scrambled to her feet as she ran to her Umbreon. She stopped by the dark type's body before falling to her knees and looked him over and tried to get a response. Umbreon, Alex whispered as she shook the Pokemon slightly. Umbreon, wake up, come on. Umbreon, wake up, please. Tears began to fall from her eyes as she shook harder. Slowly began to realize that her attempts would do nothing, that her best friend was gone. Delia watched as Alex cried her heart out, before walking over to the distraught girl and wrapping her arms around her in an attempt to comfort her. Alex slammed her face into Delia's chest as she cried in anguish, Delia joining her as tears from the eyes of the young mother. After everything she went through already, now Alex loses her Umbreon. This wasn't right, it simply wasn't fair. The man watched the two crying women, amusement clear in his eyes as they cried. He really loved it when people broke down like this, it makes living so worthwhile in his eyes. He could watch them cry all day, but he had a job to do and them crying was going to get old fast. Relax Alex Tilda, the figure spoke in a sing-song manner. Umbreon can actually be saved. These words quickly got Alex's attention as she sent a teary glare at the man along with Delia. You see, I have the power to steal the life essence of Pokemon and humans and devour them. To me, all living things with a life force are food. And, just like I can take away someone's life essence, I can also return them. He lifted up his hand that held on a red orb tightly. This orb is your Umbreon's life essence. If you and Delia can beat me in a 2 versus 1 Pokemon battle, then I'll return it, but if you lose, well, you know the results. Not seeing any other option, Alex nodded her head as she grabbed a Pokeball. Not even needing to be asked, Delia grabbed her own Pokeball as she was determined to help Alex as best she could. Absol, I need your help to save Umbreon. Ninetales, we need your help, too. In front of Alex, an Absol stood tall and proud. A necklace with a colorful stone dangled from its neck. Quickly, Absol growled menacingly at the cloaked man. Ninetales stood next to the dark type, but unlike Absol, wasted no time in snarling at the smirking man. All of her tail swung around wildly, showing how protective she was of Delia. She did not like the feeling she got from the man and saw it as a threat to her trainer. The sun began to shine brightly, even through the clouds. Delia then quickly returned Delcatty and Mr. Mime. It would seem that your Pokemon aren't too fond of me right now, the man said in mock sadness. Moving his gloved hand to the side and opening his palm, a black energy swirled in his open palm before a pitch-black Pokeball with red linings appeared. But no matter, Gengar, come and play with us. The ghost poison type appeared on the field in a black flash of light. The grinning ghost moved its hands to its mouth as it chuckled. Now remember what's at stake if you lose, he spoke calmly. Gengar, use Sludge Bomb. Gengar instantly created a ball of liquid sludge before firing it at the awaiting Pokémon. Ninetales dodged by jumping upwards and Absol dodged left. Absol, use Psycho Cut. Alex called out. Absol charged up psychic energy into the blade on its head, before releasing it in a crescent slash. Gengar easily dodged the attack by sidestepping, only to fly upwards to dodge an incoming flamethrower from Ninetales. Gengar, thunder, now! The man said as he crossed his arms. The ghost's body crackled with electricity as he shot a powerful thunder at Ninetales. Ninetales, counter it with Fire Blast, Delia replied. Ninetales quickly fired her attack and watched as the two attacks fought for dominance before exploding, sending a mild shockwave through the air. Not wanting to waste a moment, Alex gave her next command. Absol, swords dance. Absol glowed slightly as blue, ethereal swords surrounded him. A box was formed around him as Absol grew stronger. While Absol was powering up, Ninetales kept an eye on the cloud of dust that was slowly dissipating. The cloaked man grinned as he gave out his next command. Use Confuse Ray on Ninetales. Ninetales tensed as she waited for the dual type to charge through the smoke. Only for Gengar to rise from the ground next to it. Gengar's eyes released a hypnotic wave that scored a direct hit on Ninetales. This caused Ninetales' pupils to shrink and look around confused. Crap. Absol, attack Gengar with Night Slash. Alex called out. Acting quickly, Absol slashed Gengar with its now purple glowing claws. Not able to act quickly enough, Gengar was sent flying while crying out in pain. Ninetales, try your flamethrower, Delia called out. Ninetales gathered her flames and fired her attack. Directly under herself. The attack caused Ninetales to be harmed by her own flames as Absol jumped away to dodge the spreading fire. Delia gasped as she saw her Ninetales hurt herself with her own attack. Alex looked to her partner in worry before looking back at the battlefield. Delia, get Ninetales under control. Absol and I will do what we can. Absol, Night Slash. Absol roared out before charging at Gengar. Delia looked to her confused Ninetales as she slammed her head on a nearby tree. Ninetales, snap out of it. They need our help. Please, Ninetales. Ninetales' response was to shoot a torrent of flames towards Delia, who ducked out of the way. What do I do? What would Ash do? The mere thought of Ash caused a wave of determination to rise from her heart and eyes to sharpen. Knowing what to do, Delia charged towards her Ninetales. Absol, use Detect and then follow it up with Psycho Cut. Alex commanded. Following his trainer's orders, Absol's eyes sharpened as his body twisted around an incoming shadow ball that destroyed a tree on impact. The blade on its head glowed before releasing the pink-colored attack towards Gengar at a fast pace. Gengar, surprised by the attack, crossed his arms to protect himself. The attack exploded on contact with the shadow Pokémon. Gengar flew out of the smoke with his arms still crossed in front of him with his body smoking slightly. Standing straight, his mocking grin was still present on his face. Gengar lowered his body slowly until he completely phased through the floor. Alex and Absol focused carefully as the last time this happened, Ninetales was hit by a Confuse Ray. They couldn't risk the same thing happening to them. Shadow Ball, Gengar. The man commanded loudly. The ghost poison type quickly rose from the ground behind Absol and fired the ghost attack at its target, only for Absol to barely dodge by ducking under the attack. Hit it with Thunderbolt. The powerful bolt was quickly shot and was able to land a direct hit on Absol. The dark type yelled out in pain as the electricity coursed throughout his body. His yell only increased in volume as Gengar poured more power into the attack. Yes, more, the man spoke softly and rose in volume. Scream in agony for me. Louder, let me feel your pain through your agonizing screams. Yes, that's it. Scream. He quickly broke into an amused and joyful laughter as Absol's intense screams only grew. Absol, you can break it, please. Alex yelled out, only to be drowned out by Absol's screaming. Fire Blast. The powerful fire attack slammed into Gengar, causing the shadow Pokémon to yell out in pain. An explosion took place on impact, causing Gengar to slam onto the ground. Absol's screaming stopped as the Thunderbolt was cancelled. His body was littered with electric burn marks and the occasional spark of electricity. His legs were wobbly and he was about to fall, only to be held up by a Ninetales that was under him, looking into his eyes. Absol nodded as he willed himself to stand straight, thanking Ninetails for saving him. Alex, seeing Absol was okay, sent a grateful smile to the presence next to her. Thanks for the save there, Delia. Delia smiled as she wiped off some blood that flowed down her arm. Sorry to keep you waiting, but we are here now. Let's get your Umbreon back. Seeing the blood, Alex decided to question her later and make sure she got treatment for it. Turning back to the battlefield, an idea came to Alex. Delia, I have an attack to slow Gengar down, but we need to get in close. I would prefer not to miss. Delia nodded in response. Then let's make sure we get him. Ninetails, use Dark Pulse. The fox Pokémon gave a cry before running towards Gengar, recovering in a burst of speed. Ninetails then fired the Dark Pulse, which raced towards the Shadow Pokémon. Gengar, get out of the way and use Shadow Ball, the man called out. Gengar laid flat on the ground, merging with it, and watched as the Dark Pulse flew over him. Moving to the side, he separated himself from the ground and fired the Shadow Ball at Ninetails. Without any worry, in fact she held her own grin, Delia gave off her next command. Ninetails, use Flamethrower on Gengar. Ninetails quickly let the torrent of flames loose at a surprised Gengar, completely ignoring the incoming Shadow Ball. Absol, protect Ninetails by using Psycho Cut on the Shadow Ball. Alex commanded. Absol appeared next to Ninetails as he released the psychic attack. The two attacks cancelled each other out in an explosion of power. Too surprised by the tactic to dodge, Gengar was engulfed by the rushing flamethrower, causing him to yell out in pain. Absol, quick, hit Gengar with your Thunder Wave. Alex quickly yelled. The dark type shot 3 bolts of electricity at the still burning Gengar. The attack hit its mark, as the electricity blew away the flames and formed 3 electric rings around Gengar, immobilizing him. The rings then absorbed themselves into the Shadow Pokémon's body until they were completely gone. Alex couldn't help but cheer at the successful hit. Alright, we got him. Delia smiled at the girl, seeing she picked up some traits from her son. You could actually believe they are blood siblings instead of just adopted if you went by how they acted, Delia thought fondly. She was quickly thrown from her thoughts as she heard a cruel chuckle come from the hooded man. His chuckle also caused Alex to stop cheering and give the man her full attention. I wouldn't be so happy if I were you, he spoke out calmly. Gengar is far from finished. As he said this, a cold presence could be felt from the no longer grinning Gengar. Now the ghost poison Pokémon held a look of annoyance and anger. Shadow Ball. Gengar followed his trainer's command without even grunting in acknowledgement and fired the ghost attack with amazing speed. The attack surprised Absol and Ninetails as he moved even faster than before. The two quickly dodged the attack, but were still blown away by the powerful explosion when it hit the ground behind them, also kicking up a cloud of debris in the process. Gengar. It isn't just moving faster, Delia thought, watching as the smoke cleared, revealing a decent-sized crater. Alex unknowingly voiced Delia's final thoughts. It's more powerful too. Gengar flinched as sparks of electricity went through its body. Still, Thunder Wave's paralysis effect is still there. We just got to time our attacks carefully. Delia nodded at the elite's words. They could do this, they can win this battle. Delia wiped some sweat off her face as she looked at her hand. Her eyes widened as she looked at the sun, remembering something, and quickly looked to her partner. Alex, I have a hard-hitting attack that could end this. Think you can get me in close? Alex nodded her head as she gave Delia a thumbs up. Absol, charge at Gengar. Top speed. Absol took off at such speeds that he looked like a white blur to everyone. Gengar roared as he followed Absol's lead, charging at the dark type. Gengar, use Sludge Bomb, the man commanded his Pokémon. Absol, detect. Then follow it up with Psycho Cut, Alex yelled. The two Pokémon appeared in front of each other as Gengar released the poison attack but was easily dodged by Absol, who ended up behind Gengar. Then the disaster Pokémon released the Psychic Slash upon Gengar, who yelled from the pain as he soared forward. Gengar stopped himself midair, while upside down, and glared at Absol. Gengar, behind you. Gengar's eyes widened as he forgot that he had a second opponent. Turning around, he was faced with a grinning Ninetails. Ninetails, fire a point-blank solar beam. Delia called out. Opening her mouth, Ninetales fired a powerful beam of solar energy that engulfed the wide-eyed shadow Pokemon. The beam slammed into the ground, taking Gengar with it, causing a huge explosion upon impact. I thought the sun felt brighter than normal, Alex thought to herself as she looked at the panting Ninetales. Her Ninetales must have the ability Drought, since I know Sunny Day hasn't been used yet. Looking back to the clearing smoke, her eyes widened. Even after all that damage it took. In the smoking crater, Gengar stood once more. Its face contorted into untold rage as it held its wounded left arm. Gengar walked forward as it snarled at its tired opponents. Absol and Ninetales got into a fighting stance, ready to continue. Only for Gengar to fall forward and faint. Seeing this, Alex and Delia instantly cheered in victory. Alex can get her Umbreon back. As she stopped cheering, Alex glared and pointed at the man. A deal's a deal. Give me back my friend. The man sighed as blew onto the red orb in his hands. The orb released a bright light before it flew into the unconscious Umbreon's mouth. Alex watched with bated breaths along with the others, as the last bit of the orb entered Umbreon. After a minute, they all breathed a sigh of relief, seeing Umbreon's chest raising and falling again. But before they could cheer in joy, a painful noise echoed from behind them, causing them to turn around. They were surprised and angered at what they witnessed. 3 black and red chains were inside the back of the now crying Gengar. Following the chain's path, they found that it was connected to the man. He had attacked his own Pokemon. What are you doing? Alex and Delia yelled in outrage. Opponent or not, they didn't like what was happening to the Gengar. The man ignored their shouts as the chains retracted from Gengar's back, pulling out a familiar red orb. Gengar's yell of agony instantly stopped as its eyes became blank. The chains continued to retract until the man held Gengar's life essence in his grasp. Inspecting the orb for a moment, he popped the orb into his mouth and swallowed it. He looked to the shocked trainers before chuckling coldly. Why? How could you do that to your own Pokemon? Alex shouted angrily. She always loved Pokemon and with being around Ash for so long, only made her love for them grow even more. To see a Pokemon killed before her very eyes, it sickened and enraged her. No other reason than I had no use for such a weak Pokemon, the man replied in amusement. If he couldn't defeat such a weak team then he would only be a hindrance to me. The man turned around to leave, only to duck as a ball of water flew over his head. Everyone looked up to the left to see a shiny Vaporeon which was a deep blue instead of the standard pink, snarling at the cloaked man from a tree as the Vaporeon jumped down. Next to the water type was Jacob with a very displeased, and if one looked closely, they could see a tinge of disgust, especially because Jacob himself owned a Gengar. Look on his face. You're not going anywhere except for prison. Jacob shouted as he jumped from the tree, landing next to his Vaporeon who yelled in agreement. The cloaked man was now unhooded, due to the force of the attack knocking it off, was now looking at Jacob. The man had long red hair with black tips that curled at the ends. He had an amused smirk on his face that showed off his razor-sharp teeth. He also had what appeared to be red and black tribal tattoos on his cheeks, forehead, and chin which were all connected to each other. His blood-red eyes gazed at the new challenge in amusement. Delia looked confused at the new arrival while Alex smiled at the help. Absol, make sure he doesn't get away. She yelled out. Absol ran forward, followed by Ninetales, who surrounded the man along with Vaporeon. The man's amused grin only grew as the Pokemon snarled at him, then without warning, a black dome erupted from him and pushed the 3 Pokemon back. Vaporeon slammed into a tree, Absol landed on his stomach as he dangled from a tree branch, and Ninetales landed under a tree in pain. The 3 trainers were stunned at the man who sent 3 powerful Pokemon flying, without so much as twitching. They looked to the red-haired man as he laughed sadistically. You really thought you could me? If I wanted to, I could make all of you end up like that pathetic Gengar of mine. I only came here for some fun which I must say went very well. He stopped his laugh as watched all 3 trainers with a dark gleam. For actually entertaining me, I will leave you with some information as a reward. All 3 trainers leaned in, as Jacob reached for another Pokeball to stop the madman from escaping, only to find he couldn't move. An Espeon walked out from behind a tree, walking past the frozen Jacob. The Espeon had a look that was as cold as its trainers, its left ear missing a chunk on its side as if it was bitten off. Its body was littered with scars, one particular near its glowing right eye. The Espion moved its head to the left slightly, which Jacob followed and was sent flying through the air and smashing into a tree. My name is Shadow. I am the one who will drown this world in darkness and feed on its very essence. Even Arceus will become nothing more than a food item on my upcoming menu. Be ready, for when we meet again none of you will walk away from it again, let alone alive. The man, now known as Shadow, laughed loudly as he and Espion glowed blue before they disappeared in a flash of light. Under Shadow's laughter, a distinct moan of pain could be heard. Delia and Alex winced at this before turning to the surprisingly conscious Jacob. Snapping from their stupor, Delia and Alex ran over to Jacob, who was trying to force himself to stand up to check if he was okay. The man in question was leaning his body on the tree behind him with an angered and pained expression on his face. Blood dripped down from his forehead, making his face look more fierce. His lip was busted open as he could most likely taste the blood in his mouth. His left eye was shut from either the blood or the pain he was feeling. He looked towards his Vaporeon who was making his towards his downed trainer, more or less limping. A flash of light caught Alex's attention from the tree above Jacob as a Gengar appeared from the bag dangling by the branch. The Gengar floated down to the limping Vaporeon with worry written on its face. It gave a quick look to Jacob and the worry intensified. What happened here, Vaporeon? Gengar asked his friend. He knew the water type wasn't a pushover, so for someone to do this to them. Jacob and I were thrown into a tree by some nutcase with an Espion, Vaporeon responded with his voice slightly strained from the pain. He was something else, never felt a creature with such an evil feeling from them like that before. He even killed that Gengar over there for losing in a 2vs1 battle. Gengar growled menacingly when he heard that. It's humans like that disgusts me the most. Villain or not, that Gengar didn't deserve to die. Both Pokémon heard Alex's voice and looked to the humans that were still there. Don't push yourself so much, Alex said as he helped Jacob to his feet by wrapping his arm around her shoulder. All her training with her brother and Pokémon, not to mention everything in her past, has made her exceptionally strong for her age. She's right, young man, Delia said as she ripped her shirt sleeve and used it as a rag to wipe off some blood from Jacob's forehead. You took a really nasty hit to your spine and head. She didn't know him, but he did try to help stop that Shadow Man and that's good enough for her. Plus seeing someone hurt made her motherly instincts go full blast. It's fine, I'll be okay, he said as he saw them worried for him. Looking Alex, how are you two doing? How's your Umbreon? He looked towards the still unconscious Umbreon as his Vaporeon changed its direction to check on it. His water type looked over Umbreon before nodding his head in his trainer's direction, indicating that the Moonlight Pokémon was okay. Alex smiled in relief before returning him to his Pokéball as Jacob finally got Delia to stop wiping him. It was starting to get embarrassing. So what is going to happen now? Delia asked. Looking to the mother, she responded. We need to tell Ash about this and fast. We can't let someone like Shadow stay on the loose, that man is a monster. Neither noticed that at the mention of Shadow, Jacob's fists tightened in anger. You're right, we could use Ash's help with this, Jacob said as he tried to turn around. I'll go look for Shadow while you alert Az. Before he could finish he was yanked back around, flinching from the pain. Oh, don't you dare even think of going after him in you condition, Alex said as she started dragging Jacob away. And I swear if you give me that tough guy active, I'm fine, I can handle it. I will bob on the head so hard it will like a Snorlax fell on your head. You are coming with us to get your wounds healed up. Ash's campsite is much closer to us than the town, plus another eyewitness will be very helpful. Vaporeon nodded its head since he too was worried for his trainer. Gengar slightly chuckled at the girl's actions towards his, sometimes, stubborn trainer. Seeing his Pokémon agree and seeing that Alex won't budge on the manner, Jacob relented begrudgingly and made his way with less resistance. Gengar floated towards Jacob's bag in the tree. I'll go collect your things, Jacob. Fine. Jacob relented as he sighed as he looked at Alex who still has a tight grip on him, indicating that he would prefer her to let go now. Alex could loosen her grip, but then again you might run off if she did that, Vaporeon said to his trainer who rolled his eyes at his water type. Do I need to get Havoc to carry you, Jacob? Gengar said as he floated down, next to his trainer. Jacob's eyes widened and his skin paled slightly at the mention of his solely nicknamed Pokemon. No, Havoc doesn't need to come out, Jacob said aloud. Alex and Delia looked at him, confused by the name. Havoc is my pseudo-legendary. I'll go with you guys and you can loosen your grip. I know when I'm outnumbered and besides, Gengar can use Psychic to stop me if I even tried anything. Alex nodded as she loosened her grip in Jacob. The trainers and Pokemon then made their way to Ash's camp. Delia gave the group a sad look before she sighed and took out 2 Pokeballs and returning her Mr. Mime and Ninetales. She turned to head back to the city, understanding that Alex would not want her to see Ash from their conversation earlier. Seeing her leave, Alex gave a sigh as she looked to Jacob to see what he thought on the matter. Jacob looked into her eyes before nudging his head towards the leaving Delia, as if saying the one thing Alex was hoping he wouldn't. Go stop her, you know we need her. Alex nodded her head and called out the sad mother. Delia, wait please. Alex yelled, getting Delia's attention. I said we need to speak to Ash. That also means you. Delia's eyes widened as she moved to reject, worried for Alex, but Alex raised her palm and continued. Listen, not only did you help me save my Umbreon, but you were even hurt in the process. Also, this threat cannot be ignored. Shadow is powerful, scarily so, and he attacked both of us. My brother won't leave you behind to be hurt by that horrible man, even with your past. So come on, we got to get to my brother and get Jake here some help. Not seeing Jacob sigh slightly at the mistake of his name. It's Jacob, not Jake, Alex, he corrected. Alex nodded at his words and sent him an apologetic look at her mistake. Delia's words were stuck in her throat, she could only muster out a happy sob. She's going to see her son, her baby boy, up close again. Tears of joy fell from her eyes at the thought. Please, oh please Arceus-sama, give me a chance. Let this be my chance. She nodded her head as she wiped the tears from her face. Alex smiled as she reached out and grabbed Delia's hand, while giving Jacob a quick warning look, to let him know he better not try anything, and nodded her head. Jacob stuck out his Pokeball and returned Vaporeon to his confines. Delia went up to the Gengar and held out her hand. Would you like me to carry the bag? She asked the ghost type. The woman wasn't blind, she could tell that this one was much friendlier than the one they just battled. Yes, the Gengar said. Delia looked to Jacob for a translation, to her ears all she heard was, Gar. She could understand her to a degree, but not a Gengar. Gengar said, yes, Jacob explained. He didn't turn to Gengar when he said, Psychic when she lets go. Gengar understood the order and trailed his trainer and the other 2 humans. As they walked thought, Alex couldn't help but to worry. I hope I don't regret doing this. Back in the city. Near a restaurant, a sudden flash of light shined through the building. From the light, Shadow and Espeon appeared. His was still off, showing his amused smirk. He took notice that the building was filled with people, who gave him their full attention due to entrance. Shadow walked towards the front door, ignoring all the looks as his Espeon sat where it landed. Shadow chuckled as the sign on the door from open to closed. Raising his left hand, everyone in the building nodded at the silent command as they rose from their seats. They all turned completely black, clothing and all, before falling over and hitting the ground. Everyone who hit the ground turned into a pitch black and rushed towards the smirking Shadow, who still had his back turned to them. In a second, the building was empty due to Shadow absorbing all the black mass into his body. The only ones left were Shadow and the still sitting Espeon. Seeing no one left in the building, Shadow's body was covered in a red aura of power. Stretching his left hand forward, the red aura rushed forward and began to take form of a human body. The human had his face covered by a red cape and hood. What is that you need, Shadow? The man asked. Shadow chuckled at the cold tone of his master. Just wanted to know what our next step is going to be. He responded. Oh yeah, I also need a new Gengar or any other Pokemon will do. My last one kinda broke. You ate the Gengar, didn't you? The man asked as he shook his head. Shadow smirked as he licked his lips. He was delicious. His best use since I got him, he responded cheerfully. The man sighed, annoyed at his subordinate devouring his Pokemon, again. I'll send you a Mismagius as a replacement, he said. This one just finished its conditioning and is ready for deployment. Your mission is to capture and transfer more ghost types for conditioning. Shadow lost his cruel smirk and adopted a more serious one and nodded his head. That won't be a problem, but out of curiosity, sir, what are you going to be doing? I'm just playing the waiting game, the spoke calmly. Waiting for my prize to finally arrive. To Ash in the forest. Ash rolled under an axe kick from Mike and quickly jumped away by pushing off the ground, just in time to dodge a punch from Mia. Mia and Mike paused and stared at each other for a moment. Then, as if a shot had been fired, Mia hit Mike in the chest with a powerful spin kick. Using the momentum, Mia grabbed Mike's arm before he could recover and flipped him over her shoulder, slamming his back into the ground. Before Mia could follow through, a kick courtesy of Ash sent her flying into a tree. Looking to the downed Mike, Ash saw he was no longer on the ground. Mike had recovered and jumped away from the champion when he was distracted. He got into a fighting stance as he waited to be attacked from either of his opponents. Mia had gotten up from her injury and took her usual fighting stance as her eyes darted back and forth between Mike and Ash. She was pumped. This was one of the best spars she has had in a long while. Granted, she wasn't fighting nearly at her best, it didn't take the enjoyment of this fight away. The last spar that came close to this was her usual spars with her Hitmontop. Ash, he was in his own world at the moment. His eyes were focused on the match, keeping tabs on his two opponents. His mind, however, was on something completely different. He had sensed aura signatures heading this way and was attempting to identify them. The first aura signature was one that he would recognize anywhere, due to it belonging to his adorable little sister. It seems she's done training. Hope it went well. The second signature belonged to his friend Jacob. His aura felt strange, not the calm feeling he usually has. Something has him ruffled if his aura is that erratic. Still though, Alex and Jacob is a strange combination. The third aura was the only one he didn't recognize right away. It was even more sporadic than Jacob's was, meaning this person is feeling a lot of emotions at once. Focusing a bit more, he finally recognized who the aura belonged to, which made his eyes narrowed in anger. His fists clenched tightly as he grit his teeth in his rage. Ash's once calming aura became cold and chaotic. His Pokémon that felt the change in their master's aura reacted with wide eyes. The younger ones began to shake and cowered away while the older and more experienced ones gained a sharp and calculating gaze. The more motherly Pokémon quickly stepped in front of the younger ones, meaning to protect them from a possible threat. Mia and Mike grew worried and confused at Ash's sudden change in behavior. They can't sense or see aura, but their fighting instincts were on full alert and telling them to run and hide for their lives. That alone was enough to raise alarm that something was wrong. Mia grew the most worried though, due to the last time Ash got like this, she got seriously injured in a sparring match with him. What's going on to get Ash so mad, he would go into this state? The only ones who knew why Ash was getting like this were his Lucario, Zion, and his Lucario, due to them sensing the same approaching aura signatures and recognizing who they were. Why would she bring her here of all people? Zion thought, confused. She knows Ash's feelings towards his mother, so why? It doesn't make any sense. Plus, with the way Ash is acting right now, this meeting will not go well at all. While Zion was calmly trying to figure out why Alex was bringing Delia to their location, Ash's thoughts weren't so forgiving or calm. How dare she? How could she bring that woman here, to me? She knows I want nothing to do with Delia and yet she does this. Ash thought angrily. His thoughts began to become clouded with his anger as his aura began to darken and he growled before a cruel smirk made its way to his lips. Ash raised his right palm in a random direction to others, but he was actually raising in the direction he felt the aura signatures. Seeing his actions confused everyone, except Zion and the Lucarios, whose eyes widened at Ash was about to do. They were about to intervene, but they were too late. An orb of aura formed quickly from his raised palm, though the color was much darker than the normal color. As soon as the fist-sized orb was done, he shot the attack forward. The aura sphere quickly raced towards its targets, who just appeared from the woods. Alex and Delia froze, too surprised to move due to seeing the attack, as the aura sphere neared them at a faster rate. Luckily Jacob wasn't shocked enough to be frozen as he yelled, "Look out!" and grabbed both girls before diving to the ground just in time to dodge the incoming orb. The attack soared over their heads, just barely missing them. The attack hit a tree and not only obliterated it, but also left a huge pit in the ground while uprooting 4 other nearby trees. The trees all fell to the ground with a resounding thud as they crashed into the ground, causing the ground to shake slightly. Everyone, besides Ash, watched the trees fall in complete shock. That was more than a simple knockout attack, which is already going too far, but that aura sphere could have seriously hurt them. It wouldn't have been enough to kill them, but enough to put them a serious condition in the hospital. To make it worse, Ash did it on purpose, with the intent for the attack to do just that. Alex, who stared at Ash with wide eyes, began tearing. The attack wasn't just aimed at Delia like many would think. No, that attack was meant for her too. Ash's ability to sense aura would have told him the identity of all of them, so he knew she was there. That attack was meant to take all of them out. Ash, big brother, Alex whispered in sadness. Her teary eyes could no longer hold back her tears as she looked into Ash's rage-filled eyes. No longer were they the warm and inviting brown that she was used to, no, these were uncaring and cold. Jacob glared heatedly at Ash. He did not like how he just attacked them like that, even if he had issues with his mother. Even if he was mad, it did not give him the right to attack them with that kind of intent. Plus he's already in a bad mood from that incident with Shadow, and this little episode was only pissing him off even more. Delia was just as teary-eyed as Alex was at Ash's actions. She knew Ash hated her from their last encounter, but she didn't realize that it was this bad. To not only attack just her, but his own sister in his rage spoke volumes of his hatred towards her. Staring into Ash's darkening eyes caused her already breaking heart to shatter. The pain was so excruciating for her, but looking into his eyes made everything pause for a moment as a single thought crossed her already damaged mind. Ash's eyes were supposed to be hazel brown, so why were they nearly pitch black? Quickly, Delia's motherly instincts flared through all of the pain that she was feeling in her heart. Something was wrong with her baby boy. Worry and determination caused her eyes to sharpen and her gaze became protective as she took in Ash's entire appearance to see if she could find something, anything. Something was wrong with her son, and she is going to find out what it is. Don't call me that. Ash yelled towards Alex, causing her to flinch at his tone. He's rarely ever yelled at any of them, especially at her. You brought that woman here. You know what I think of her and you still brought her here. You broke my trust in you, just like them. So don't you dare call me your brother. Each word Ash spoke became darker and more hate-filled. You better watch your tone, Ash, Suzaku said as he stood a few inches behind Ash. He had a tight grip on the hilt of his katana as he glared at Ash. You are already on my shit list after the stunt you just pulled. Don't make your grave any deeper. Ash's response was to glare at the dragon specialist from over his left shoulder. Ash's aura, which was blacker than it was blue now, began to become denser and flowed out of his body. Everyone watching this confrontation felt a cold shiver run up their spines at what they were feeling. Jacob discreetly activated his own aura sight and his eyes widened at what he saw. Dark blue aura. Just what is going on? Suzaku stood his ground against the powerful and cold feeling that Ash produced, ignoring his own instincts telling him to run away, as he intensified his own glare and began to go through his own changes. His teeth lengthened and sharpened as they became fangs similar to what you would find on a predator. His once dark, brown eyes changed to a grayish-green color with a silver-slit pupil in each eye. His nails also grew in length and sharpened and became claws. His once black hair began to gain hints of orange throughout its locks. A powerful pressure could be felt coming from him, but the aura users could tell that the feeling wasn't aura. Suzaku pulled his blade from its sheath, revealing a black and red steel blade. The blade was curved upwards slightly and began to release its own powerful pressure. Getting into a stance he called Dragon's Dance, where it mainly focuses on his agility and flexibility and quick slashes. Ash's dense aura grew into a dark blue rod, as he swung it lightly behind him. The dense power of the rod caused the ground behind him to crack from the powerful force of the aura. The two trainers were about to charge each other before two powerful aura spheres crashed in the middle, causing a huge explosion. Looking to where it came from, Ash's and Zion's Lucarios were glaring at the two actions. What is the meaning of this Lucario? Ash yelled out in anger. His aura became even darker than it already was, making it near black now. The silver Lucario didn't so much as flinch and instead intensified his own glare. He decided to use his telepathy so everyone, instead of just Ash, could understand his words. You are being absolutely childish right now, Ash. He yelled at his trainer. You don't let Alex finish talking and then you go and attack with the intent to seriously harm her. This isn't you, Master. This isn't the trainer that gave us all a family. I won't let you lose yourself to your own petty anger, not after you did for us. For me. Ash narrowed his eyes towards his partner, his aura moving wildly and completely uncontrolled. The ground beneath him shook violently and began to crack under the pressure of Ash's rage. Zion walked next to Ash's Lucario, hoping to reason with his teacher. Ash, you have to look around you. You taught me that an aura guardian sees life as a sacred thing, that we give everyone a chance, but what you are doing right now is the exact opposite. You are not protecting a life, you're doing everything you can to harm one. This is not my aura guardian teacher, not the loving trainer that cares for life, Pokemon or otherwise. If you want proof, Ash, look at yourself. Look at you, Pokemon, your family, feel your own aura. Ash looked at his Pokemon with his dark brown eyes and they widened at what they saw. His Pokemon, mainly the younger ones, were either shaking or hiding in fear from the dangerous threat, from him. The motherly Pokemon were hiding the younger Pokemon from Ash as they stared directly at Ash, non-flinching. Ash's more veteran Pokemon, while not visibly shaking, was very tense and their eyes were sharp. Even Pikachu's cheeks were sparking. Looking at his hands, Ash saw that his aura was no longer its natural blue color. He couldn't even recognize his old aura signature anymore. This aura was so dark and so hateful. Flashes of what he was doing entered his mind, and the mere thought made him sick. He felt nauseous. What? Ash spoke softly. What have I done? Tears began to flow from his eyes as they began to return to their normal hazel color and he clenched his fists in frustration. His black aura changed from its near black color, back to its blue color. The aura flowed over the field, still in its wild state, allowing everyone to feel the sorrow that he felt. Many of Ash's Pokemon, especially the younger ones, wanted to run up to their trainer. To console their trainer as much as they could and tell him that it's okay, but one look from Lucario told them that they should stay put. The same could be said for Zion, who didn't go to his master for the same reason. Delia was about to make her way to Ash, her heart shattered as she saw her son crying. She couldn't stand to see her baby boy so upset, no matter what has happened, even if he hates her. She took one step toward her son, but felt a hand on her shoulder, stopping her from moving. Turning to the perpetrator, she saw that the hand belonged to Jacob. Jacob shook his head at the distraught mother, seeing the reasons that Ash's other Pokemon were stopped. He pointed to the right and Delia followed suit to see why she was stopped. Delia nodded her head at why. I guess it's for the best that this get addressed first, she thought. Ash dared not to move, all he could do was stay on his knees and cry his heart out. He couldn't stop himself from crying nor could he control his powerful leaking aura. He couldn't believe what he has done, he could not believe his own actions. That cold feeling coursing through his body, that powerful hatred that fed on his very soul. The anger that swept from his body as it tried to suffocate and destroy everything around him. It felt so horrible, so sickening, though it felt worse that it came from him. To make matters worse, he had done something unforgivable. He had attacked his own little sister. His own anger caused him to attack his little sister. Someone that he had sworn to always protect and take care of, and he attacked her with a very dark intent. Due to his actions, he made his own Pokemon see him as a threat. He attacked one of his closest friends, he threatened his Pokemon, and he attempted to hurt his sister. All due to his own anger and hatred. Grabbing his head, Ash had only one thought: what is happening to me? In Ash's sorrow, he didn't take notice of the presence that came up behind him until a pair of slender arms wrapped around his shoulders. Ash's eyes widened as he quickly, on instincts, used his aura to sense who it was, and to his shock, it was Alex. Alex was holding Ash in as tight as an embrace as he could, pressing his back to her. I love you, big brother, she whispered in his ear, causing his eyes to widen. I love you so much, not just because you saved me all those years ago. You gave me a family, you taught me and took care of me. It's thanks to you that I'm here today. Ash Ketchum, I would never do anything to hurt because you are precious to me. My precious older brother. You are my hero and inspiration. Relief and pain, these were the two dominant emotions running through Ash's body. Relief that his dear sister still loved him. She still cares about him so much and held him in high regard, even in his most shameful moment. The pain at the fact he could hold such anger, such resentment to this wonderful girl before him. The pain was also quickly followed by deep regret and remorse. He tried to hurt her or worse. He yelled at her and wanted nothing to do with her, even though he loves her so much. Ash's tears flowed faster as he whispered, "I'm sorry," over and over. He repeated it like a mantra, like a spell that he hoped could fix everything. Praying that his sister never vanished from his grasp, still not comprehending how she could forgive him so easily. Alex began to shush Ash while squeezing tighter, trying to show her sobbing brother that she was still here. Everyone watched as the two siblings held each other, as their cries echoed through the quiet field. Only two people were not looking at the scene with warm eyes. Suzaku, while having a smile on his face due to the scene, had a dark look in his eyes that he kept focused on Ash. He refused to take his eyes off the Kalos champion. He refused to take his eyes off of him, not after his attack on his girlfriend. He knew one thing very well, hostility like Ash showed does not just vanish so easily. But it also doesn't appear suddenly like that either. What's going on with you, Ash? He thought. Jacob looked at Ash with a calculative gaze. He may not know Ash as well as the others do, but he knows Ash isn't the aggressive type due to the time they did spend together. The Ash they witnessed had no care if he attacked or even took a life, a complete contrast of the Ash they knew of, especially for an Aura Guardian. Also Aura has a light blue color from what I know of, so what was going on with his being almost black? The feeling I got from it was unsettling to say the least, he thought. Something was going on with Ash, and it wasn't good. Over the vast blue ocean, the legendary rainbow Pokemon known as Ho-Oh was weaving and twisting around attacks that sailed past him. Explosions took place either within the water or the sky, causing water to spray in the air and wet his feathers slightly. Many different species of Pokemon can be seen attacking the Johto legend without any signs of stopping. Crobats, Matangs, Staraptors, and even Golurks were doing whatever it took to bring down the mighty legend who continued to dodge their every attack. Attacks such as Air Slash, Psybeam, and even Hyper Beam were all dodged with grace and speed. Ho-Oh turned its head left and released a powerful flamethrower that engulfed a mass of Crobats and Matangs. Two Matangs rushed towards Ho-Oh from behind, hoping to hit it with takedown. Ho-Oh quickly dived downwards towards the water, dodging the rushing Matangs. He was quickly followed by a flock of Crobats. When it neared the water, Ho-Oh shot another powerful flamethrower at its surface. The attack hitting the now chaotic water caused a thick cloud of steam to rise, completely encasing the legend and its pursuers. Loud splashing sounds can be heard from the thick steam as the Pokemon waited to see what would emerge. From the smoke, a flamethrower rushed out, causing them to dodge as fast as possible. Ho-Oh burst from the steam and used the path the Pokemon created. Ho-Oh grinned in victory at outsmarting the Crobat who were trying to get out of the ocean they were now in. He took off in high speeds to escape the other Pokemon who were still pursuing him, not intending to let him escape. These Pokemon are seriously persistent, Ho-Oh thought to himself, dodging another onslaught of attacks along with explosions the attacks made. Let's see how they like this. He turned around while charging a silver flame in his beak. Sacred Fire. He yelled out as he released his signature move on the surprised Pokemon. Too shocked to respond, most of the chasing Pokemon were caught by the attack and plummeted towards the water. Out of the Pokemon caught by the powerful attack, only one Golurk still had stood in the air but only barely from all the damage the attack did. The other Pokemon who couldn't stand the attack fell out of the sky into the ocean below. The Golurk quickly fired a Hyper Beam that Ho-Oh dodged with ease before flying to the left as he ran attempted to escape the now cut down flock of Pokemon. As he flew, Ho-Oh saw he was flying towards an island of sorts, causing him to try going a different way, not wanting to endanger any innocent Pokemon inhabiting the island, only to be attacked with more ferocity. Some attacks even making contact with his body, causing him to wince slightly from the pain. As they got closer to the island, Ho-Oh had one thought in his mind as he came to a realization. They are pushing me to that island on purpose. A light coming from the island caught Ho-Oh's eye, causing them to widen as he saw what was heading his way, and causing that bright light. Ho-Oh dived downwards, avoiding a powerful flamethrower that barely missed his wing. Stopping his dive when he felt he was safe, the rainbow Pokémon came face to face with his attacker. A powerful Charizard stood before the legend with a vicious snarl on his face. The Charizard's body was littered with scars, no doubt from many vicious battles and intense training. From the powerful wind caused by the occasional flap from its scared wings, Ho-Oh could tell it was also a very powerful flyer. The feeling the Charizard gave off was something that he has not felt in a long time from a normal Pokémon, an overwhelming amount of power. His fellow legendary Pokémon can exude this amount of power, and the last one he felt that wasn't a legendary was the Lucario owned by Sir Auron. Ho-Oh now knew that trying to escape the upcoming fight was pointless. This Charizard could no doubt keep up with him at his full speed, and with all of these Pokémon blocking his path still, he had no choice but to battle. Why are you all attacking me? Ho-Oh screeched at the Charizard, who only growled in response. The power radiating off of him is not normal for his species, what is going on? Now Ho-Oh, a voice spoke out above the two flying Pokémon. I think it's quite obvious what's happening here, don't you? Ho-Oh looked up and his eyes widened at the sight before him. A human wearing a black cloak was grinning his way. Protruding from his back were wings, about the length of Charizard's, made of pure aura. Pure black aura. A dark aura user. Ho-Oh yelled out mentally as sweat poured down his face from worry. This shouldn't be possible, not anymore at least. The last dark aura user nearly destroyed the world and almost killed Lord Arceus. He even made him permanently under his command. How is there another one when we kept track of every aura user that exists? Charizard, use Fire Blast followed by Slash, the man suddenly commanded. Charizard roared with power before firing the powerful fire attack that raced at Ho-Oh. The legend quickly dodged, only to move his talons up and block the glowing claws of Charizard, struggling to keep the fire flying at bay. So focused on holding his ground, he didn't see Charizard's other glowing claw rushing at him. Ho-Oh let go to try and dodge, but he moved too late and the slash hit its mark across Ho-Oh's chest, causing the legend to screech out in pain. Not one to be outdone by another though, Ho-Oh swung his left wing at Charizard, his wings hardening into his steel wing attack. The surprise attack hit Charizard directly across the face, sending the flame Pokémon flying backwards a few feet before it stopped himself and glared. That's just like you, Ho-Oh, the man thought. Charizard, go and show him what a real steel wing's supposed to look like. Then burn him down with flamethrower. The giant lizard took off towards Ho-Oh with his wings metallic like Ho-Oh's was a few moments ago. Ho-Oh screeched before rushing towards Charizard with his own steel wing. The two attacks collided with a loud metallic tang, and created a shockwave that dispersed any nearby clouds. The two Pokémon, while still trying to overpower the other, reared their heads back and fired a powerful, close-range flamethrower. The two attacks collided and caused a pillar of fire to tower over the two Pokémon. The more power they poured into their attack, the more intense the tower of flames became. The tower, after about a minute of growing, began to bend and fluctuate from all the power it now contained. No longer able to sustain its form, it exploded in a fiery rain that the two battlers ignored. Some of the small balls of fire made its way to the cloaked figure and the surrounding Pokémon. The Pokémon just did their best to either evade or defend themselves from the flames. The cloaked figure just grinned as a dome of energy formed around him, blocking the fire with ease. Ho-Oh caught sight of this action at the corner of his eyes and grimaced. His control over his dark aura is practically perfect, Ho-Oh thought in worry, as he dodged a slash attack from Charizard and sent his opponent back with a flamethrower. Ash's aura abilities is near master level, but that's only in his control and shape. His skills in using Pokémon attacks still need a lot of work, unlike this man. That protect attack was flawless. Keep your head in the game, Ho-Oh, the figure said. Charizard, use Flare Blitz and make sure that it hurts. Charizard's body was instantly covered in flames before it changed into a fiery blue color, and charged at the surprised rainbow Pokémon who tried to dodge but failed. Charizard rammed into the legendary, causing an explosion that drowned out Ho-Oh's screech of pain. Follow it up with Slash, the cloaked man commanded. Then hit him with a fire blast. Another screech of pain was heard from the smoke as a colorful blur was launched out of the smoke. The blur, Ho-Oh, tried to straighten itself, only to be slammed by an incoming fire blast and was engulfed by another fiery explosion. Charizard roared out in victory as it had bested one of the world's most powerful fire-type Pokémon. Looking towards its trainer for orders, the man only smirked in amusement and slight annoyance at his Charizard. You're not done, Ho-Oh, you're far from being beaten. A fire blast made its way from the smoke and slammed into the unprepared Charizard. The attack pushed Charizard a few meters before exploding. Ho-Oh dispersed the smoke around himself with a flap of his majestic wings as he growled at his opponent. Don't count me out of this fight just yet, lizard. Ho-Oh screeched in defiance. I've lived since the beginning of the world's formation, and have battled just as long. You will have to do much better than that if you wish to take me on. A roar erupted as the smoke was dispersed by the scarred Charizard who looked like he was still raring to go. The cloaked smirked at the fight before him. Go ahead, Ho-Oh, you're just like you were back then. Charizard, go in with a slash attack once more, and don't let up. Charizard's claws glowed white as they extended in length and he took towards Ho-Oh who responded by flying upwards to dodge the Charizard. Charizard stopped its rushing and chased after the legendary into the clouds. The cloaked figure's eyes glowed black as he used his aura sight to see the two Pokemon's aura. Then his black aura wings flapped as he flew after the two battlers. Ho-Oh quickly dodged a slash and twisted around another swipe. Flying over a third swipe, Ho-Oh's wings glowed metallic and countered Charizard's fourth attempt with a steel wing. Dodge, dodge, counter. Dodge, dodge, counter. This process kept occurring down. Charizard's next attempt had just missed Ho-Oh and was about to attack again before its master gave another order. Use Dragon Claw and grab his wings. Charizard's white claws vanished and they were replaced by large, purple ethereal-like claws. Ho-Oh, who was already in the process of swinging his steel wing, was caught off guard by the change in tactics and could not react in time. Luckily though, thanks to the steel wing, Ho-Oh took little to no damage from the Dragon Claw's energy grabbing his wing. But now Ho-Oh was trapped, locked by the tight grip that the snarling Charizard had on him. The cloaked figure commanded as he calmly and slight amusement in his tone. Charizard, Dragon Rage. Opening his powerful jaws, a dark blue sphere formed, before Charizard released it while still holding onto Ho-Oh. The Johto legend screeched in pain as the attack scorched its feathers, the intensity of the close-range attack increasing in power. Charizard cancelled his attack as he glared at his slightly smoking opponent, whose screeching stopped. Ho-Oh, whose eyes were still closed from the pain he felt, snapped its eyes open and clasped his beak around Charizard's neck as tight as he could. This caused the flying Pokémon to roar out in pain. Charizard, ignore your foolish pain and use Dragon Rage once more, the cloaked man commanded, uncaring of his Pokémon's cries of pain. Charizard swallowed down its painful cries and fired another close-range Dragon Rage, eliciting another cry of pain from Ho-Oh. The legendary used all of its will to ignore the pain he felt, as he clenched his teeth and allowed electricity to spark around his body. The cloaked figure's eyes widened as he saw what was about to happen. Charizard, get out of there! He yelled out, but it was too late as Ho-Oh unleashed a devastating thunder attack on Charizard. Not only did it cancel Charizard's dragon-type attack, but it made the flame Pokémon loosen his grip as he wailed in agony. This allowed Ho-Oh to break free and knock Charizard down with another steel wing. As Charizard plummeted, Ho-Oh gathered the familiar silver flames in his beak and unleashed his signature move. The hooded man's left hand clenched into a fist as he saw the sacred fire approach Charizard. That damn Ho-Oh has learned a few new tricks since we last met, he thought to himself. A smirk made its way on his lips as he flexed his dark aura, but even then. Charizard's eyes snapped open as he sped down faster and rolled to the right, dodging the sacred fire. Use Flare Blitz Charizard and make it count. Charizard's body was covered by the familiar blue flames as he rushed towards Ho-Oh. How can it still be able to battle? Ho-Oh thought frantically as he dodged Charizard, only to be chased by the fire-flying type. I can't keep this up much longer. Battling non-stop all day, being chased down by the other Pokémon, and expending so much energy with my attacks, not to mention the multiple sacred fires used, along with all the damage I've been taking. He turned and charged at Charizard as his body began to glow a rainbow color, his feathers taking on the glow as well. He began to spin as his sacred fire surrounded him, the rainbow colors mixing into the silver vortex. So he's using it, the cloaked man thought, amused by the turn of events. His rainbow aura, the second reason he's called the rainbow Pokemon. This is his final stand move, since when he uses it, it's really draining on him. It looks like it's over for you Ho-Oh, get ready to say goodbye to your free will. Charizard. He paused as the two Pokemon got closer to impact before he yelled out his final command. Blast Burn at full power. The flames encasing Charizard's body became so intense that all surrounding Pokemon began sweating. The flame on his tail not only grew in length, but also in intensity. The blue flames traveled to his arm and fist as they glowed so brightly that the surrounding Pokemon had to look away. The light caused by both fire Pokemon lit up the ocean below, and the intensity of the fire caused some of the trees on the island below to smoke slightly. Inches from each other, a loud screech came from Ho-Oh as well as the powerful roar from Charizard echoed for miles as some of the Pokemon had to cover their eyes from the high volume. Time seemed to slow as Charizard swung his fiery fist forward and Ho-Oh lunged at full force with its multiple colored vortex. The two titanic attacks collided, as a shockwave so powerful that everything in the surrounding area was affected. Clouds dispersed and vanished, leaving a clear blue sky. The once calm ocean was now shaking violently as if a storm was blowing. Even the audience of the battle were thrown back a few meters and to fight as best they could to not be thrown further. The two Pokemon continued to push as another shockwave occurred, this time stronger than before. Neither Pokemon were willing to lose this struggle, and with one final yell they pushed with all they had. Ho-Oh's light from the spinning vortex dimmed slightly, as an explosion replaced the scream of the Pokemon as it echoed through the vast sky. The explosion caused a thick cloud of smoke to cover the battling Pokemon, blocking the view from the spectators. For a moment, no move was made and not a sound was heard. The man nodded his head as the smoke was blown away by the powerful flap of wings. Charizard stood proudly and menacingly while being covered by burn and bleeding bruises. In his right hand was a bruised and barely conscious Ho-Oh, who dangled limply in the Charizard's tight grip. Wordlessly, the cloaked man lowered himself as he flew towards the lone island, taking note that some plants were either smoking or already lit with flames. Charizard flew after his master as his grip tightened on the slightly struggling legend. Once they reached land, the man's black wings dispersed into energy and were reabsorbed into his body. His Charizard landed soon after with a loud thud, and tossed Ho-Oh to the sandy ground. As Ho-Oh tried to get up, he was slammed back to the sand by the Charizard's foot on his back. Ho-Oh barely raised his head as he glared at the cloaked figure. Why are you doing this? Ho-Oh asked as menacingly as he could, which didn't really work due to his raspy voice. My reasons are my own Ho-Oh, the man spoke out. The only thing you need to know is that I am your new master. At the word, master, Ho-Oh released a deep and menacing growl. This action caused the man to smirk and the Charizard to stomp on Ho-Oh's back, causing the legend to grunt in pain. What's wrong Ho-Oh? Having some trouble? The mere taunt and amusement in his voice made Ho-Oh's blood boil in anger. Just who are you? Ho-Oh grounded out. There aren't many aura users left in the world, let alone someone like you. You could practically taste the venom in Ho-Oh's words. The man simply shrugged at Ho-Oh's anger and tone, as a new smirk made its way on his face, happy at seeing Ho-Oh in such a state of pain and anger. You know who I am Ho-Oh, he replied calmly. You might even say. He pulled off his hood, revealing slightly spiky raven-colored hair, dark brown eyes, and a chiseled handsome face. You know me really well. Do you recognize me now? Ho-Oh's eyes widened, his anger still growing throughout his body. It can't be him. How dare you mock his face, you bastard? He's dead and you dare to cause his spirit such unrest with your actions. You will pay. You really don't think it's me Ho-Oh, the man replied, pleased by Ho-Oh's rising rage. Then there is undeniable proof that it's me. His black aura roared to life around him, twisting around him in a violent manner as it kicked sand into the air. The color began to change and lighten up slowly as it changed from its black color to a light blue. Ho-Oh's eyes widened once more, he couldn't believe it. This aura, this powerful feeling was held by only one person. That means his attacker, the one that's caused him such pain, was his closest mortal friend. He couldn't believe it, he refused to believe it, but the evidence was staring him in the face, as his enemy. How could you? Ho-Oh whispered in a soft tone as his rage rose. How could you do this, to me, to us? The man smiled, though far from the warm smile Ho-Oh remembered, as his aura quickly returned to its black color. His eyes glowed black and the same black aura erupted from Ho-Oh's body, causing the legend to screech in pain. When did he get me? Ho-Oh yelled mentally as he panicked. He watched helplessly as the man he once trusted raised his hand and the black aura rushed at Ho-Oh, bathing the rainbow Pokemon in its dark embrace. Ho-Oh screeched in pain as he tried to resist the control of the black aura and the cold feeling in his heart. He refused to become a puppet, he would not be controlled. 2 minutes have passed and Ho-Oh was still resisting his master. This caused Ho-Oh to pause in shock at his thought. That was a big mistake. That split-second pause was all the man needed as his black aura intensified around both him and Ho-Oh. Just as quickly as it grew, the black aura stopped. For a moment, it just floated around the rainbow Pokemon's body before it was slowly absorbed into it. Charizard stepped away from the Johto legend as the last bit of the black aura disappeared into Ho-Oh. As Ho-Oh began to stand up, the man nodded as he could feel the hate and malice from Ho-Oh. Pleased with the result, he grinned at the once proud legendary of the Johto region. You belong to me now, Ho-Oh, am I understood? Ho-Oh opened its now darkened eyes as he bowed lowly to its new master. Understood, Master Red. Damn it, Ash, be more gentle with those damn bandages. Jacob said as a bandage was wrapped around his torso, tightly. In response, the bandages were pulled even tighter, causing Jacob to wince and growl slightly. Glaring at Ash through the corner of his eye, you're enjoying this too much, Ketchum. Ash, who was tying the bandage, chuckled at the young man. Well, you're the one who aggravated the wound to this point, Ash pointed out, thinking what led to him bandaging his friend. After the incident had finally calmed down, Jacob had made an attempt to leave so he could try and hunt down Shadow. The mere thought of that man made his blood boil in rage and disgust. No matter how hard he tried to put to the back of his mind so he could talk to Ash, the man and his cruel smirk kept coming back to the front of his thoughts. He refused to let that monster get away with what he's done. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you view it, his escape attempt was noticed by Delia, who called out to him. You know, she said, getting his attention. It really isn't smart to leave right now due to your injuries. Your Gengar even seems to agree with me as well. She pointed behind Jacob, who followed her line of sight and paled at what saw. Gengar was floating with a huge grin on his face as an all-too-familiar great ball floated next to him. Sighing, Jacob sat down by the shade of a nearby tree, annoyed and angered at the fact that no one is hunting Shadow down. Why weren't anyone but him taking this seriously? Ash looked to the injured boy, guessing what was going through his mind. He couldn't blame him, it was taking everything he himself had to not go after that Shadow guy. Jacob, I know exactly how you feel, Ash said as he gained his attention. I want to hunt down that bastard as well, no matter how it may look to you. The problem is that we won't find him, at least not right now. We have several aura users on this island, Pokemon included. One of us would have sensed a man with as dark an aura as you say, but we didn't until he wanted to be found. In other words, we are dealing with a madman that knows how to mask his aura and keep his intent hidden until need be, Jacob continued as he realized Ash's point. The raven-haired man nodded his head. Add to the fact that Shadow may no longer be on the island due to his Espion's teleport. He could be anywhere by now. But what if he is still on the island? Zion chimed in. I mean, we can't simply ignore a threat like that Shadow man. Especially with such a messed up ambition as his. And who knows, Shadow may be the very reason for the unease that the legendaries have been feeling. I understand your worry, Zion, Ash said. But we can't just chase after someone who can hide himself so well and so easily too. I have them searching the island and you know for a fact that he would have said something to me if he found something by now. Everyone except Jacob, Mike, and Delia nodded their heads, knowing what Ash meant. Jacob rose an eyebrow at Ash's words, curious at who he was talking about. Delia, while curious, decided not to ask due to feeling like she had no right to. Mike simply felt it was none of his business, so just let it be as he shrugged. Ash sighed once more as he finished the last wrapping on Jacob, coming out of his memories. That should do it, he said as he stood up. Looking around for a moment, his gaze stopped on his mother. He closed his eyes for a moment before they snapped open with determination, feeling like it was time to address the elephant in the room, as they say. Mom, Ash began before he paused and shook his head, not feeling right calling her his mother. Delia, I should thank you for helping Alex and Umbreon. He bowed his head low as he thanked the woman that gave birth to him. Delia felt a stab at her heart due to Ash refusing to call her mom, though it was to be expected. It's all right, she needed help, and after hearing how important she was to you, Delia paused as she thought her words over and gazed at Alex, who was being held close by Suzaku. I didn't want you to lose someone close to your heart, I already caused you enough grief. Ash kept his intense gaze on Delia, not sure what he should do with her. He definitely didn't want her around, he just didn't trust her. Even now, as he looked at her, that cold feeling gripped at his heart tightly, tempting him to give in to it and let out all of his hate and anger. On the other hand, he couldn't just abandon her like this. He was sure that the shadow guy will attack again, and he was almost certain he will attack if she were to be alone. He knew where to find Alex and Delia, and even played with them throughout their battle. Plus, no matter how he feels towards Delia, she was still his little sister's savior. She could have ignored the whole thing since he only really went after Alex's Umbreon. She only got involved because she stayed to help, getting herself injured in the process. Ash sighed as he slowly walked towards Delia, causing everyone to want and tense up. Ash stopped in front of his mother, glancing at her for a moment before his arm launched forward in blinding speed. This caused everyone, including the still resting Jacob, to get ready to stop Ash. Either stop him from doing something he will regret, or just plain stop him from hurting someone. Ash gripped Delia's arm as he pulled it up, revealing several bite marks that were still bleeding and were slightly dirty now. Your arm is hurt from when you tried to knock your Ninetales from its canoe fusion, Ash said as he began to clean out the wound with a cloth from his pocket. You need to be more careful with a confused Pokemon, though I'm not honestly one to talk. After cleaning out the wound, Ash began wrapping her arm in medical tape. As Ash worked, Delia watched him with a loving gaze. Her eyes roamed Ash as she memorized Ash's every feature. She wanted to be sure that when Ash told her to leave, which she was sure he was about to, that she could still see Ash in her memories clearly. Anything that would allow her to be as close to her baby as possible. Ash is her whole world after all. As Ash finished tying the tape securely, he looked Delia in the eye. He couldn't help but feel warmth flood his body at her motherly gaze. It felt like all his hate vanished from his heart, that cold grip just suddenly let go and ran from the love that shone from her. He felt like back when he was a kid and his mom would comfort him after having a bad dream. Ash quickly squashed that feeling, as whose gaze he was staring at came to his mind, along with the dark thoughts. Mother or not, she betrayed his trust. It isn't just about his dream being taken from him, it was the fact she no longer believed in him from one small upset. After doing what he could, she pretty much thought of him as worthless. Ash refused to let her make him feel that pain of betrayal again. Shadow will most likely attack you again, Ash stated, not seeing the fear creep into her eyes. If not for nothing else, but the sheer joy of causing you pain. You won't be safe by yourself. Delia and the others in your little group won't be much help against someone with no morals like his. He looked into her eyes once more, finally coming to a decision. That's why you will gather your things and move it all into my room. His words shocked every person in the area, except Jacob, who wore a small smile at Ash's choice, and Alex, who was going to offer Delia the same thing. She had an extra bed in her room. No one was more shocked than Delia, who couldn't stop the tears of joy from falling down her rosy cheeks. She was no fool, she knew Ash had not forgiven her. His offer wasn't even because he liked her, and she couldn't blame him. Her joy was from the fact that her son was still offering to protect her, even after what she had done. He was putting his grudge aside to help someone he had no care for. She felt motherly pride at Ash's actions, even if it was obviously reluctant. Her second reason was very simple. She could spend more time with her beloved child and even be under the same roof too. Don't get the wrong idea, Delia, Ash stated harshly. I haven't forgiven you. I'm an aura guardian and it's my job to protect all life as best as I can. I'm doing this out of duty and oath, not because I care for you. Also, there will be ground rules that cannot be ignored. Failure to comply will result in you being thrown out. He left no room for arguments as he flexed his aura to show how serious he was about it. Delia nodded her head at her son's words, expecting those very words in all honesty. I understand, Ash. I swear to abide by your words, she responded. Ash nodded as he turned away. I'm going to the Pokemon Center. I need to order something and see who my opponent is going to be tomorrow. Could you guys help her move her things to my room? Alex and Ty stepped up, offering to help Delia carry her things. Said mother gave them both appreciative smiles, as Ash tossed his room key to his sister. I should probably get back to Erica, Jacob said. I want to be sure she's okay, with Shadow running around. You know she's going to flip when she sees your injuries, Gengar said, amused by Jacob's sigh. Vaporeon snickered slightly at his trainer's situation, knowing how she usually gets. Let it be known that Erica could really worry over the smallest things sometimes. You mind if I tag along? Mike said as he grabbed his things. We live in the same building as you and I could really use the company. Jacob nodded as he gave everyone a two-finger salute before walking away with his Pokemon and Mike, who was waving wildly at them, in tow. I'll stay here and train some more, Mia said as she tossed a Pokeball in the air, releasing her Hitmontop. There's a fighting combo I want to try out. Ash nodded as he looked to Suzaku, hoping he hadn't lost him as a friend for his actions. He may have reconciled with Alex, but he wasn't sure if Suzaku still considered him as a friend. Looking into Ash's eyes, Suzaku smiled slightly. I'm going to stay here with Mia, maybe get some training in as well. The tournament resumes tomorrow. Ash nodded as he looked over his Pokemon, thinking of who to take with him besides Pikachu and Lucario. Making his decision, he returned 4 other Pokemon to their confines as he began to walk away. Hold up, Ash. Ash turned around to see Zion run up to him. I'll go with you, don't feel like staying here. Ash smiled and nodded at his student. Sure, I could use the company. The two made their way to the city in a comfortable silence. After about 5 minutes of walking, Zion addressed Ash. Hey Ash, he said, gaining said trainer's attention. I know you probably don't want to answer, but what happened earlier? I have never seen or heard of Black Aura before. The feeling it gave off wasn't pleasant either. To be honest with you, Zion, Ash began as he looked at the bright sky. I don't have a single clue. One moment I was fine, sparring and in complete control. I felt something pull my senses from the fight, and the next thing I know, I felt rage like never before. All I could think about was pain, anger, and revenge. My body, it felt like it was on autopilot. Zion, Lucario, and Pikachu looked confused at his words. What do you mean your body went on autopilot? Pikachu asked his trainer. Just as it sounds, Ash replied as he looked at his partner. I saw everything that happened, but it was like I had no control, yet I did at the same time. It felt like I was being guided and my body just followed that guide without question or hesitation. The more anger I felt, the stronger the guide was and the less I cared for anything else but my revenge. The more I wanted to hurt everyone, the more I looked at everything as a reason to be mad. When I looked at all my Pokemon, that feeling vanished, as if it ran away and is now only lying in wait to strike again. His Pokemon and Zion looked at Ash in concern. If what he says is true, then whatever caused Ash to act the way he did was still there. They understood his words because Ash acted completely out of his usual character. That dark and cold feeling wasn't there, Ash, but that only begged one worrying question. Was the Black Aura the real cause for Ash's anger? They arrived into the city as they quickly made their way to the Pokemon Center. The city was much more active now that it's midday. Quickly making their way, they arrived at the Pokemon Center. As they were about to enter the building, a voice called out that made them pause. Ash, hey Ash. They turned around to find the culprit was a young girl, around the same age as Ash. This girl was Annabelle, the salon maiden of the battle frontier in Hoenn. Next to her was Paul Shinji, Ash's rival throughout his journey in Sinnoh and quite arguably his toughest rival. Paul was much taller than before, actually half a head taller than Ash. His dark purple jacket was half zipped up and he actually wore a gray scarf around his neck. He walked slowly towards Ash with his arms crossed and his usual scowl. Ash smiled as he saw them and braced himself as Annabelle tackled him. Neither noticed Paul's eyebrow twitch at the sight, except Zion who quirked his own. It's great to see you, Ash, Annabelle said excitedly. I haven't seen you since the beginning of the tournament. Ash chuckled at the salon maiden as he separated from the hug, much to said girl's disappointment. It's good to see you too, Annabelle, Ash said warmly, causing her to blush brightly. I have just been busy with so many different things at once, plus I've mostly been in the forest training than my actual room. No matter how much training you did catch him, you're still going to lose to me, Paul said as a smirk made its way on his face. Before Ash could retort, Annabelle turned around and beat him to it. Don't be mean, Paul, Annabelle said. What happened to you being more civil with people? Paul scoffed at her words. Ash looked between the two, confused by their interactions. Do you two know each other? He asked. Pouting at Paul, Annabelle looked back to Ash. Yeah, that's my older brother by a few months, Paul Shinji, she said. Her words caught Ash by surprise as his eyes widened at the information. Annabelle and Paul were siblings. We already know each other, Annabelle, Paul said. He looked at Ash. Close your mouth, Ketchum, before Zubats enter that cave. Ash's mouth only opened wider at the fact that Paul actually made a joke. Zion, unsure of why Ash was so shocked, chuckled at his teacher. His laughter caught the attention of Annabelle and Paul. Seeing their eyes were on him, he decided to introduce himself. Hello, Annabelle, Paul, Zion waved to them. My name's Zion, I'm a friend of Ash's. Paul only nodded his head in greeting as Annabelle waved happily at him. Zion was about to say more until he felt something pull on his short-sleeved shirt. His gaze turned to his Lucario, who gave him a serious expression. Connecting their auras, Zion addressed his longtime friend and partner. What's up, Lucario? He asked mentally. One of Ash's former friends is approaching here fast, Lucario said. Teacher says that it's that Misty girl and she's heading this way. The way Ash responded to seeing his own mother, his fault or not, it would be unwise to let those two meet. I see your point, Zion responded. Especially since she was Ash's first traveling companion. Let's go stall her while Ash finishes up here. His Lucario nodded at his partner's plan. Hey Ash, Zion said, getting Ash's attention. I'm going to go on a jog with Lucario, gives me a chance to sightsee the city more. Send me a message when you're finished up. Ash nodded to his friend. Okay Zion, I'll just catch up with Paul and Annabelle, Ash replied before sending his student a concerned glance. Please be careful though. Ash knew Zion can handle himself, but with Shadow on the loose, they couldn't be too careful. Zion nodded, figuring the meaning behind his worry. I'll be fine, man, I got my Pokemon by my side. Let's go, Lucario. Trainer and Pokemon ran off, getting ready for their mission. Any idea how we are going to stop her? Lucario asked as he ran next to Zion. I got to, and I pray that I don't need to use option 2, Zion replied. They continued to run until they ran past the orange-haired girl. Hey, wait miss. Zion called out enthusiastically. Misty turned around as the young Aura Guardian ran up to her. You're Misty Waterflower, the Cerulean Gym leader of Kanto, right? Misty nodded as she blushed slightly at the, admittedly cute, man. Yes I am, may I help you? Yes actually, Zion said with a huge grin on his face. My name is Zion and this is my partner Lucario, he gestured to the Aura Pokemon who waved in greeting. It's nice to meet you too, she greeted with a small smile. I know it's kind of sudden, Zion began as he looked nervously at her. But I was wondering if I can interest you in a battle. He gave a determined look as he mentally rolled his eyes at his fake acting. Lucario had to hold back a chuckle at the act his partner was putting up. Actually, I was hoping to head to the Pokemon Center to see who I'm up against tomorrow, Misty said with an apologetic look. Please Misty, Zion pleaded. I really want to test myself and my Pokemon. I wasn't invited to participate, but I came to watch a friend. When I saw your battle I just had to battle you myself. Please Misty. Lucario. His Lucario chanted as he pumped his fist forward. Might as well play along with him, the Pokemon thought to himself. Seeing the look in both the Pokemon and trainer's eyes caused her resolve to waver and break. Misty gave a small smile as she nodded at the duo. Okay, she said. There's a battle square not far at all, we can battle there. She didn't notice the fact that Zion's smile dropped slightly as he resisted the urge to twitch. Yeah, that's not going to work, that's way too out in the open, Zion thought nervously. Remembering about the tournament, Zion gave a bright smile. Why don't we use Area A instead, it's not far from here either. I really want to battle there, it will feel I'm actually a part of the tournament. Zion, having nothing better to do, had read up on the rules of the tournament and what are some of the privileges allowed on the island. Each stadium, unless told otherwise, is open to everyone during breaks or after the last battle of that day. All you have to do is sign in with the security there and sign out when you're done. The only downside is that you have to be watched by security during the battle. I'm okay with that, Misty said as she shrugged. Zion cheered out loudly as he grabbed both of Misty's hands and pulled her towards the stadium. Thank you so much, he said in an excited tone. I promise this will be a lot of fun. Not to mention safer until we find out what's going on with Ash. Misty giggled at THR trainer's enthusiasm, unaware of the real reason for the challenge. Pokemon Center. Ash has just finished paying Nurse Joy to send out his order and was making his way to Annabelle and Paul, who were having an interesting argument. Why didn't you tell me that your rival in Sinnoh was Ash? Because it was none of your business, Annabelle. Besides, why do you care so much? This caused Annabelle to blush and stutter a bit. Shish, shut up, Paul. Paul rose an eyebrow at her actions. Annabelle, don't tell me you have a cruise. Paul was quickly silenced by Annabelle placing both hands on his mouth. Don't say that so loud, Paul. Annabelle said as her face became a bright red color. Don't say what now? A voice said from behind Annabelle, causing the young frontier brain to yelp out in fright. Don't do that, Ash. Annabelle reprimanded as she tried to calm her fast-beating heart. Ash rubbed the back of his head, chuckling nervously. Hey, sorry about that, Annabelle, he apologized. I didn't meant to scare you like that. It's fine, Ash, she replied while blushing at how cute Ash looked at the moment. So, how come you came to the Pokemon Center, Ash? Annabelle asked as she stood as close to him as she could, without raising any alarms. To her though, it was enough to be able to get a whiff of Ash's scent, and to feel the warmth that he gave off. Watching their interactions caused Paul to be rather conflicted. Contrary to belief, Paul loved his family dearly, even if he isn't good at expressing it. He looked up to his older brother for years, always wanting to be as strong as him. Then he hears about his sister actually becoming a frontier brain at such a young age. To be able to beat both of them is the main reason he trained so hard. Now watching his little sister interact with a boy she liked caused his senses as her brother to go crazy. He wanted to just step right between the two of them before it went any further. On the other hand, Ash is a very respectable trainer, not that he would say that out loud, and a trustworthy friend. He knew something did spark between the two, then Ash would treat her well. He didn't know what he should do right now. So lost in thought, he didn't take notice that Ash was trying to get his attention. Paul, yo Paul. Ash yelled, but was not getting a reaction. Getting into his rival's face, Ash applied a little aura to his lungs. Paul. That did the trick, as Paul yelled out of his trance. What didn't go as planned was for Paul to swing his fist forward out of reaction, nailing Ash on the nose. Gah! Ash yelled out in pain as he held his nose. That hurt, Paul. Whatever, Paul responded, crossing his arms. Not my fault, you're an idiot who can't dodge. This caused Ash to growl as he glared at Paul. The purple-haired boy returned the glare just as intense. It looked like the two would start fighting, causing Nurse Joy to get ready to break them up. The other patrons were watching tensely until Ash started laughing and Paul began to chuckle. This threw everyone through a loop. One moment they looked ready to kill each other, and now they were laughing like old friends telling jokes to each other. The only one who wasn't confused was Annabelle, who knew that the two weren't really angry at each other. Seeing the two act angry one moment, then laugh the next, Annabelle couldn't help the soft giggles that escaped her lips. Hearing the giggle, Ash paused as he stared at Annabelle, entranced by the beautiful sound that rung through his ears. Ash gained a small blush as he heard it. He enjoyed the sound so much, he wanted to hear it again. Maybe even for the rest of his life. Whoa, where did that thought come from? Ash yelled mentally. I mean, yeah, Annabelle is really and has her own appeal that complements her own slender body when compared to Cynthia and her unmatched beauty and hourglass. Stop it. Ash's red face turned darker as his thoughts processed. Paul looked at Ash in both amusement and annoyance, figuring what's going through his mind and still unsure how to act towards it. Annabelle, who had stopped laughing, blushed at the cute look Ash gave. It only added to the appeal Ash already had, and some of the other women watching this scene agreed, if the blushing was anything to go by. Pika Pie, Pikachu, Pikachu called out, snapping the three from their thoughts. Ash looked at his first partner in confusion. I'm sorry buddy, I didn't catch that. Pikachu rolled his eyes at his best human friend. I said, can we go now? This caused Ash to chuckle as he scratched Pikachu behind his ears, gaining a soft chew for his efforts. Annabelle, being the only other person who could understand what Pikachu said, giggles. Seeing Paul look at her, she answered Paul's silent question and repeated Pikachu's words. Paul's sweat dropped at the electric mouse and agreed with him. Yeah, let's go to one of the battle squares, we might find a decent trainer. Sure, my Pokémon could use a good stretch, Ash stated as he shrugged. He and his Pokémon haven't trained today, so this could be fun. Annabelle sighed at this, since they will be going to battle again. Don't get her wrong, Annabelle loves a good battle as well as her Pokémon. At the same time, she was hoping to spend some quality time with Ash. The group exited the Pokémon Center and made their way to the battle square. Unaware of the another group making their way to the same area. Battle Stadium. Zion stood across from Misty as they got ready to begin their match. Zion knew not to underestimate Misty, seeing as she was still a gym leader and said to be quick on reaction time during battles. Misty, while not knowing how Zion battled, knew better than to underestimate her opponents. It always led to one's downfall. The guard they asked to monitor their match was also referring the battle. This will be a 2-on-2 battle with no time limits. Either trainer may substitute at any time. The battle will end when both Pokémon on either side is unable to battle. Now trainers, send out your Pokémon. Misty analyzed the battlefield, taking in key points to look out for. The field was a grass and water field, which was good for her. There were large pools of water, with some being cut down the middle due to the grass. By how large some pools are, she could safely assume that some of them were connected to each other. Taking a Pokeball from her belt, she gave it a toss while yelling out, Misty chooses Dugong. The flash of light guided to one of the larger pools of water as Dugong appeared. Dugong, do! The Pokemon cried out. Thanks to Zion's aura, he was able to translate it to, let's battle. Reaching behind him and unclipping a great ball, Zion tossed it as well. Rule the battle, Lapras. In a flash of light, Lapras appeared in a pool across from Dugong. Let's win this, Zion, Lapras called out in determination. Said trainer couldn't help but to smirk at his water Pokemon. Be careful, Zion, Lucario said through his aura. She's no pushover and you'll be battling her in her element. He trusted his trainer, but he didn't want him to get cocky. Misty is a water-type specialist, so underwater battles are when she's at her best. Zion nodded at his Pokemon's warning as he locked his eyes onto the two Pokemon who were giving each other challenging glazes. Let the battle begin. Misty wasted no time to attack as the battle was announced to begin. Dugong, hit Lapras with your Aurora Beam. Dugong opened its mouth and fired a primarily green beam that raced towards the smiling Lapras, splitting the water's surface. Lapras, counter that with your Water Pulse. Zion yelled out. Then follow it up with Rain Dance. Lapras cried as it quickly formed a ball of water and shot it at the incoming beam. The two attacks slammed into each other, the water-type attack making a shield against Dugong's attack. Lapras then cried towards the sky as dark clouds formed over the stadium. Soon rain began to pour down on the trainers and Pokémon. Dugong, use Aqua Jet now, Misty commanded. Water swirled around the sea lion Pokémon's body, getting stronger thanks to absorbing the rain into it, and took off. Dugong was too fast and rammed into Lapras, who skidded back slightly. Lapras's eyes were closed shut from the pain. Misty wasted no time calling out her next attack, deciding to use the opening they were given. Dugong, use your toxic. The water type lowered its head as his horn glowed purple. From the tip, a purple liquid shot out and hit Lapras, poisoning Zion's Pokémon. Lapras, use your water pulse, Zion said, unconcerned about the poisoned transport Pokémon. Lapras quickly fired another orb of water that slammed into Dugong and sent it flying into a different pool of water. After Dugong, Lapras. Lapras cried out as she swam to the edge of her pool and jumped to the other pool Dugong landed in, due to it being right next to hers. Hearing her trainer yell out, "Body slam," Lapras rushed at Dugong. She jumped above her target and came down with all her might. Dugong, dodge it by diving underwater. Misty commanded. Dugong followed her command and went beneath the water's surface. Lapras slammed into the spot where the sea lion Pokémon once was, causing a large splash. Now use takedown before Lapras can recover. Dugong quickly charged at full force and rammed into the transport Pokémon, sending her into the air. Finish it up with Hyper Beam. Misty commanded. Due to this combo of attacks, she was confident that Lapras won't be getting back up. So lost in thought over her victory, she took no notice of Zion, who just crossed his arms. Lapras was hit by the beam of destruction that caused a mild explosion. Alright. Great job Dugong. Misty cheered for her friend. The water-type Pokémon cheered along with its trainer. Zion smirked as he nodded his head. Use Blizzard. Suddenly a powerful blast of cold wind pushed the smoke away, revealing Lapras, who barely had any scratches on his body. The cold wind was mixed with ice and snow and some of the rain water, that was still pouring, and slammed into the shocked Dugong, who was pinned down from the force. Misty was surprised by Lapras not only still being able to battle, but also the fact that it barely looked damaged. It's times like this that she glad that Dugong possessed the ability Thick Fat, reducing any damage done by ice and fire-type attacks. The wind maybe stopped Dugong from moving, at least he wasn't taking much damage from it. When the attack stopped, Dugong shook his body and glared at the smiling Lapras. He couldn't figure out how Lapras could not only still be standing, but still smile like nothing happened. Zion chuckled at the confused duo, gaining their attention. You see, Lapras is not like other trained Pokémon. Most people go for power, speed, combining skill, etc. Lapras here trained her defense and stamina to a point. She shot past most of species in lasting in a battle. She can take a full power Hyper Beam or Giga Impact from several directions and still keep standing, ready to battle. His words caused Misty's eyes to widen. AMD Dugong to worry. To be able to plow right through one Hyper Beam was already impressive, to take several is amazing. Zion gained a warm look in his eyes as he turned his gaze to Lapras. It's ironic really, since when I first got her she was frail and very sickly, he said, gaining an interested look from Misty, neither noticing the rain had stopped. Lapras was born with such a weak body that swimming for 5 minutes tired her out. Taking attacks were out of the question since even a scratch attack would do major damage to her. Misty was so engrossed in the story, that she forgot that they were in the middle of a battle. Even Zion was now lost on memory lane. I ran into her when she ran off from their herd as they slept. She was trying to train her body so she could get stronger and not be looked at as the weakest link in the family. She was treated like she fragile glass by her entire family and herd, and she absolutely hated it. Seeing her determination, I revealed myself to her. He paused as he chuckled at the memory. She tried to blast me with her water gun out of surprise, he explained. I ended up soaked in water, but I didn't care as I found it kinda funny. I looked at her surprised eyes before I offered her chance to make her stronger, by my side. Shaking his head from the memory, he looked back to the field. The rest could be told some other time, seeing that we are in the middle of a battle. Misty nodded in understanding, but you could see her disappointment at not hearing the rest of the story. Lapras, use Ice Beam, Zion commanded. Lapras opened her mouth and fired a cold beam at Dugong, who tensed. Misty decided to fight fire with fire. Dugong, counter with your own Ice Beam. Dugong quickly fired the ice-type attack from his mouth as well. The two attacks collided. As they pushed against one another, the surrounding water began to freeze. Soon enough, Dugong's attack began to push Lapris's attack back. Lapris, cancel your attack and use Blizzard. Lapris did as told and stopped its ice beam, letting Dugong's attack race towards her. She then blew the powerful cold winds once more at full force. The attacks pushed the ice beam back with ease and sent it back to Dugong, along with the blizzard. Dugong was caught off guard by the counter and didn't have time to dodge. He was hit by his own ice beam before being slammed by the blizzard. Like before, Dugong looked like he wasn't being too hurt by the attack, but couldn't move because of the strong winds. When the attack subsided, Dugong shook some of the ice off his body, only to realize he couldn't move the lower half of his body. Looking down, the sea lion Pokémon saw that the pond was frozen from the blizzard attack, along with the lower half of his body. Oh no, Dugong! Misty cried out, surprised by the turn of events. He figured out Dugong had the thick fat ability, so he focused on trapping him instead. He's really good. As you may have guessed, I figured out your Pokémon's ability, Misty, Zion said. Now it's our turn to lay down some attacks. Lapris, Thunderbolt. Lapris jumped from her pool and fired the electric bolt from her body. The electric attack hit its mark, causing Dugong to cry out in pain. Dugong, if you can, use your hyper beam on the frozen water. Misty commanded. Dugong fired the attack, ignoring the pain, and caused the ice and water to fly through the air. The explosion caused the thunderbolt to cancel out. Now Dugong, return, she said as she took a Pokeball and sent the sea lion Pokémon back to rest. Taking out a different Pokeball, she released her second choice. Go Corsola. The rock water type appeared in the grass and jumped and down in joy. Yay, I get to battle. It's battle time. Corsola cheered, though only Zion and Lapris understood. Lapris smiled at the small Pokemon's joy. Looking to her master, her smile became more warm. It looks like the little one is raring to go. Let's not disappoint the little dear. Zion nodded, knowing his Lapris is a very motherly Pokemon, yet doesn't like to hold back on determined Pokemon either. Let's go, Lapris. The battle continued. Back with Ash and company. Now Glaceon, finish this up with Shadow Ball. Ash yelled out. The ice type fired the purple ball at a frozen Shiftry, destroying the ice and sending the dark grass back. Seeing it could no longer get up, a girl rose her arms up. Shiftry is no longer able to battle, victory goes to Ash and Glaceon. The crowd that gathered to watch, cheered at the show. Great job Glaceon. Ash cheered as his ice evolution jumped into his arms, licking his cheek in pure happiness. That's 5 out of 5, you're doing awesome. Thanks Ash. Glaceon called out happily. She loved it when Ash complimented her, it ironically made her feel warm inside. Ash, Annabelle, and Paul have been battling the moment they arrived at the square, apparently everyone wanted to battle. So far, Ash has been going through 5 straight victories using only Glaceon. Annabelle clapped lightly for Ash's victory, having won her 4th battle with her Alakazam. She was entirely shocked to see Ash owned a Glaceon, but that turned to joy when she saw how close the two were. She could feel the immense joy the ice-type felt when Ash chose her to battle against a Persian. The Salon Maiden looked to her left to see her brother just finished off his opponent's Golbat with his Weavile. If she would counted correctly, this was his 5th victory. She turned back to Ash who just gave his partner a treat while petting her softly, a warm smile on his face. The Frontier brain gained a bright blush on her cheeks at how handsome he looked. My Arceus. It should be a crime for him to smile like that. That damn sun shining on him isn't helping at all. She yelled mentally as she tried to calm down. Ash looked to the crowd, ready for his next challenge. Does anyone else want to battle next? We are ready for another. Glah, Glaceon, Glah. Glaceon chanted as Ash understood it as, yeah let's go. Seeing no one about to step up, Ash was about walk away with Glaceon until he heard a challenge from a voice he easily recognized. Yeah, I challenge you to a one-on-one battle, Ash. The young champion turned around to face the one who challenged him with clenched fists. Standing there was Iris, Dawn, Gary, and the one that issued the challenge, Brock. Standing there, Ash could feel his anger raising to the surface again. The same cold feeling returning as it gripped at his heart, telling him that it's okay to hurt them. He could feel his mind slowly become clouded with his anger as his aura began to race faster throughout his body. He could feel his control over himself begin to slip. Glaceon looked to her trainer, knowing Ash is getting angry again. They were lucky no one was seriously injured yesterday during the incident. This time they are in a highly populated area, surrounded by both kids and adults. If a repeat happens, someone is bound to get hurt this time. Annabelle looked at Ash in both fear and worry. Due to her empathy ability, she felt Ash's changes. No longer was his heart the warm, comforting feeling she loved so much. The feeling she got now was cold and hateful, wanting nothing but control and destruction. This was not her Ash, this was not the trainer she was in love with. She was about to call out to Ash when she noticed the warmth return to his heart, only slightly. Ash snap out of it. This made Annabelle turn her gaze downward and see Glaceon calling out to her trainer. Glaceon even nuzzled on his leg and it seemed to calm him down and make that cold feeling lessen. This isn't you, Ash. Those humans are not worth you losing yourself again, Ash. You're better than this, Glaceon continued, hoping to get her loving trainer back. The ice type got scared when Ash looked down at her and his eyes were like a dark storm. She held her ground though, knowing her master was fighting for control against whatever this was and she would not insult him by being afraid. A cloudy image, that's all that Ash saw. He knew it was his Glaceon, he knew it but he couldn't see it. His vision darkened as he began to see black, before a bright light shined through, blinding him due to its bright glow. The Kalos champion slowly opened his once more and saw everything was clear once again. His Glaceon cheering that he was back to normal, his ex-friends looking confused at what was going on, the crowd of trainers for his reply, and a hand gripping his tightly. He looked to his left and saw Annabelle looking at him in concern. Annabelle, having enough of being scared, ran up to the love of her life. She saw the light that Glaceon created in Ash begin to slowly fade from the dark feeling that took root and had to act quickly. She gripped his hand tightly as she tried to convey her worry to Ash, similar to what Glaceon had been doing, whether it knew it or not. When she felt his warmth return, she released a sigh of relief. Looking to Ash, she blushed at how close they to each other. You feeling better, Ash? Ash nodded at her as he entwined his fingers around hers, neither noticing it. Yeah, thanks to you and Glaceon, he replied as he turned back to the ones who stirred his current anger. So you actually want to battle me, Brock? The pewter gym leader nodded his head in response. Yes I do, Ash, but I want something if I win. Ash rose an eyebrow, curious what he wanted. If I win, then you have to come with us and talk with us instead of walking away. Ash felt his anger begin to return at the proposition, before he felt Annabelle tighten her grip which calmed him down. Fine Brock. I would say if I win then you all leave me alone, but you guys would just find some other way to bother me. I accept your challenge. Dawn moved to the side. I'll referee this battle then. Please send out your Pokemon. Brock grabbed a Pokeball and tossed it. Come on out, Kabutops. The powerful prehistoric Pokemon appeared in a flash, crossing its bladed arms over its chest. So, Brock has a Kabutops now, Ash thought. Glaceon began to walk forward before Ash stopped her. No Glaceon, I want to use your older sister for this battle. The Ice-type's eyes widened before she smirked and nodded. Glaceon returned to Ash's side, excited to see her sister figure battle again. She based her graceful movements from watching this specific Pokemon after all. Ash grabbed a love ball from his belt before tossing it up. Gardevoir, may your aura guide us. In a flash, the psychic, fairy type appeared as she opened her eyes slowly and gazed at the fearsome Kabutops. She glanced at her trainer and smiled as a necklace with a colorful stone dangled from her neck. Hello Ash, it's been a while since we have battled together, she said in a loving yet regal tone. Even her voice was both graceful and beautiful. Yes it has Gardevoir. I'm sorry for that, Ash apologized. While he loved his Pokemon, it was difficult to make sure they all got a chance to battle. He will have to make it up to his friend when he gets the chance. Will you battle alongside me Gardevoir? Gardevoir giggled at her trainer, finding it funny he would think he had to ask. Of course I will Ash, you don't have to ask. Ash smiled at the embrace Pokemon. She returned her attention to Kabutops. Sorry about this Kabutops, but you are going to have to fall here. Kabutops growled as he pointed a blade at the elegant Pokemon. In your dreams, I will cut you down with ease and continue to hold my title as the top predator. Dawn looked at the two before throwing her arms down. Begin. Kabutops, start this off with Swords Dance, then follow it up with Slash. Brock commanded as the shellfish Pokemon called on ethereal blades that were absorbed into its body. Then its two-bladed arms glowed brightly as he took off towards Gardevoir. Ash simply said, "Dodge," as one of his favorite shows began. Kabutops reached Gardevoir and swung his arms in blinding speeds, showing it was a very fast Pokemon. Only problem was that it couldn't hit Gardevoir at all. The Embrace Pokemon twisted and spun around each PF Kabutops attempts. To the audience, it looked as if Gardevoir was dancing around the rock-water type strikes. Gardevoir jumped above a sideways slash as she smirked at her opponent. Use Teleport now, Ash said, already knowing what the shellfish Pokemon would do next. As Ash predicted, Kabutops swung his arm upwards in another attempt to cut Gardevoir, only for her to vanish in a flash of light. The shellfish Pokemon growled at missing his target again. He began to look around, trying to find his prey. Gardevoir reappeared above Kabutops in a flash of light, an amused smile on her face. Use Moon Blast. Gardevoir gathered her energy as pink orb formed in front of her. Kabutops, look out above you. Brock yelled to his partner, who looked up to see the pink orb racing towards him. Counter with Aerial Ace, now. Kabutops. The shellfish Pokemon yelled as he rushed upwards, a white energy cutting through the air as he charged at the Moon Blast. The two attack exploded on impact, covering Kabutops in a cloud of smoke. Gardevoir, get ready, Ash said through use of his aura. He doesn't do this often as it kills the thrill of battle to him, but he can make an exception for this one. Kabutops should appear any second. Right, Ash, Gardevoir replied as she began to fall. She used her psychic power to help predict where Kabutops would come from. She didn't have to wait long as the prehistoric Pokemon rushed from the smoke, Aerial Ace still active. Teleport, Gardevoir, Ash commanded. Then use Magical Leaf. Gardevoir vanished in a flash of light, just as Kabutops reached her position and reappeared in front of Ash. Then leaves appeared around her, imbued with her power, and were sent at Kabutops. The predator didn't have time to act and was bombarded by the sharp leaves as he grunted in pain. Kabutops, use X Scissor to knock the leaves away. Kabutops's blades glowed a light blue as he swung them in a cross. A light blue, X, appeared and either sliced through or deflected the glowing leaves. The armored Pokemon glared at Gardevoir, who smiled warmly in response. Do you understand yet, Brock? Ash asked. Gardevoir trained her movements until she felt she could dodge anything. If you hadn't noticed, her movements are akin to her dancing. Ash gained a grin. And that's not all. Gardevoir, use Shadow Ball and Moon Blast. Gardevoir gathered her energy as she spread her arms apart. In her left formed the pink orb and her right formed a dark purple orb. She smiled as she shot the two attacks towards Kabutops, who was preparing to counter. Now use Psychic followed by Teleport. Ash commanded. The Embrace Pokemon's eyes glowed blue as a blue aura surrounded the two orbs. As they reached Kabutops, who lunged at the two attacks, they vanished in a flash. Kabutops' eyes widened as he searched, missing the flash of light as the two orbs appeared behind him and slammed into his back. The shellfish Pokemon grunted in pain, not expecting the assault on his back. He looked up to see Gardevoir walking slowly towards him. Can't hit from close range and nearly impossible to hit us from long range, Ash said as he smirked. So what will you do, Brock? Back to the battle with Zion and Misty. An explosion rocked the stadium as Lapras skidded from the smoke, a smile still present on her face. Across from the transport was Corsola, who was breathing heavily and was littered in cuts and bruises. The small coral Pokemon had tried to use its small size to its advantage, but Lapras was no fool. Though it could take hits, it still dodged whatever the pink Pokemon attempted. The attacks Corsola did land on Lapras barely did any damage. Lapras on the other hand landed a decent amount of attacks. They were not enough to take him down, but strong enough to keep him at bay. Thanks to his recover attack, Corsola was its own tank. A Pokemon that can take attacks against a Pokemon that can heal from any attack. The battle was winding down to who will get tired faster. Corsola, use spike cannon. Misty commanded as Corsola's quills glowed brightly. Spikes were fired at a rapid pace towards Lapras, who just watched as the attack approached. Lapras, counter with Blizzard, Zion said as Lapras released the strong winds once more. The blizzard not only froze the spikes, but also sent them back at Corsola. Lapras flinched as her poison took effect again, sapping away more of her health. Corsola, iron defense. Misty countered. She knew her Corsola was pretty slow, even in water. Corsola's body glowed as its body hardened, just as the double attack landed. Corsola was able to take the attack, but lost its footing due to the strong winds and was sent sailing through the Ira, slamming into the wall. Lapras, hydro pump an ice beam to finish this, Zion commanded. In a fluid motion, Lapras fired the powerful water attack that slammed into Corsola and kept it pinned to the wall. Before Misty could command a recover, Corsola was hit by the incoming ice beam, causing the coral Pokémon to cry out in pain. When the attack ended, Corsola fell to the ground. The referee looked at Corsola before raising his hand. Corsola is unable to battle, victory goes to Lapras. Trainer, send out your final Pokémon. Dugong, come out, Misty announced as the sea lion Pokémon appeared. It looked a little worse for wear with the cuts and bruises throughout its body. It gave Lapras a fierce look, not willing to go down easily. Lapras, charge at Dugong and use Ice Beam, Zion commanded as the transport Pokémon jumped from pool to pool, while also charging and firing ice beams. Dugong either dodged by diving to different pools or countered with ice shards. This process kept going as water and ice flew everywhere. Misty gasped as she saw that Lapras was only one pool away from Dugong. Dugong, Aqua Jet and stay away from that Lapras. Water swirled around Dugong as he fired backwards, hoping to gain distance from the smiling Lapras. This action made Zion smirk in amusement and victory. Now Lapras, Blizzard at max power. The ice beam Lapras was charging, quickly Bakame a Blizzard as the lake Dugong flew from, both rocked violently and froze. The moment Blizzard hit the fleeing Dugong, he lost balance as the Aqua Jet froze, encasing the water ice type in a block of ice. Dugong, no. Misty thought helplessly as the frozen Dugong hit one of the frozen pools. Lapras, wrap this up, Zion began before he looked at the transport Pokémon and sighed. Lapras was wheezing heavily as sweat fell from her face. It seemed Lapras is not fully ready for battles on this level yet. Gazing at the water gym leader, hey, let's call this a draw for now. His words surprised Misty as her eyes widened. Why would you do that? Misty questioned, confused. You basically won this battle. I wanted to only use Lapras for this battle, he responded. She's worked hard to bypass her illness but traces of it still stand. This battle was basically a test for her, and she still has some ways to go. Forgive me for any insults you may feel, Lapras needed this. He bowed to the orange-haired girl. It's fine, Misty shook her head as she returned her Dugong. I think it's sweet of you would do that for your Lapras, but under one condition. Zion nodded as he returned his Lapras. Sure, what's the condition? You come with me to a restaurant and tell me the whole story involving Lapras. She said as she pointed at him with a smirk. Zion sighed mentally, not really wanting to but deciding to just go along with it. Things I do for Ash. Sure, I know a good place. Misty nodded as she followed the Aura Guardian in training. As they walked down, a thought crossed Zion's mind. I really hope Ash is staying out of trouble. Back to the battle with Ash. Night Slash, Kabutops. Dodge and hit him with a close-range moon blast. Kabutops swung his blade, which glowed a dark purple color, at the smiling Gardevoir. The Embrace Pokémon bent so far back that her spine nearly touched the ground, and with a quick spin was behind the prehistoric Pokémon. She quickly slammed the powerful moon blast into the shellfish Pokémon, hurtling back to the trainer's side. Gardevoir stood back straight as she smiled at the odd look of the watching trainers. She knew Pokémon that moved like her was uncommon, her movements made her unique and she loved it. At the corner of her eyes, she took note of the excited look on Glaceon's face. The evolution has been trying to base her movements after Gardevoir, seeing the Embrace Pokémon as a pseudo-sister. Ash, I think it's time we end this battle, Gardevoir said to her trainer, who nodded in agreement. Gardevoir, Combination 4. Teleport and Shadow Ball. The Embrace Pokemon vanished instantly. She reappeared next to the frantic Kabutops and slammed the Ghost-type attack into him. She vanished once more and appeared in front of Kabutops, slamming another Shadow Ball into him. Brock was at a loss on how to counter as this combo of attacks continued one after another. He gripped his fists as Kabutops grunted in pain as it was bombarded by Shadow Ball after Shadow Ball. After nearly a minute of this, Ash sighed. Enough, Gardevoir, he said as Gardevoir reappeared in front of her trainer. Kabutops struggled to stay standing, glaring at the Embrace Pokemon with as much defiance as he could. His legs gave out as Kabutops hit the ground and fainted. Dawn raised her hand. With a frown on her face, Kabutops is unable to battle. Victory goes to Gardevoir and Ash. Gardevoir flipped her hair as she placed her hand on her hip. Like there was any doubt. She said in an arrogant tone. Ash chuckled at her, knowing she was joking. Gardevoir, your ego is showing again, he replied jokingly, earning a playful smirk from Gardevoir. He looked back to the traitors, as Brock comforted Kabutops, and didn't know what to feel. Happy that he won, anger that they bothered him, or sad at how he didn't feel joy during the battle. That was a good battle, Challenger, Ash spoke out, though it sounded more animated than sensual. Maybe next time the battle will be different. Gardevoir, let's go. Knowing what he wanted, Gardevoir's eyes glowed. Her psychic energy outlined her trainer, the other two humans he was with, and the girl's hand he has yet to let go of, and Glaceon. Before she could get them all out of there, one of the humans called out to Ash. Ash, please listen to us. Dawn pleaded as tears began to fall. Please give us a chance to talk, why is that so hard to do? The Ash I know would at least hear us. But vanished before Ash can hear the rest. The trainer and Pokemon group appeared in the clearing in the forest with a flash of light, causing all of Ash's Pokemon to take defensive stances. When they saw it was Gardevoir and Ash, they all visibly relaxed. Some of the younger Pokemon instantly ran up to the psychic, fairy type with pure joy. Ash chuckled at the scene, knowing his Gardevoir usually plays with the kids in the group. Due to his chuckling, he failed to take notice of his Glaceon, who narrowed her eyes slightly annoyed at Ash and Annabelle. Ash, Glaceon called out in a tone that showed how annoyed she was, causing Ash to look at her. How much longer are you planning to hold that human girl's hand? Glaceon's hard stare was traced directly to the two trainers' hands, which were locked tightly in each other's grip. Ash and Annabelle looked down and saw that the ice evolution was correct. Throughout the entire battle with Brock and the teleportation to the clearing, they had not only not let go of the other's hand but actually tightened the interlaced fingers. Blushing brightly at the discovery, the two trainers let go, even if it was reluctantly, and looked away from each other, embarrassed. Paul looked at this scene and couldn't help the amused smirk that made its way across his lips. It was funny to see his sister get so flustered, even if it was over his rival. This also gave him a lot of teasing material over both Annabelle and Ash. And he was so going to capitalize on that opportunity. Glaceon narrowed her eyes dangerously at Annabelle, nothing but a cold feeling emanating from them. She wanted her master and friend to be happy after what he did for her when she was younger, and she did not trust this girl to not hurt Ash. She refused to allow any human girl, without her approval, to get close to Ash. Pikachu saw the glare from Glaceon and chuckled lightly at her overprotective nature towards Ash. Ash and him had saved her when she was still an Eevee from some violent poachers, who had evidently killed her parents in the traps they set out to catch Pokemon. After saving her, she became very affectionate and defensive of Ash. He remembered there was a time when a trainer punched Ash due to Ash both confiscating said trainer's Pokemon and arresting him for negligence and the abuse of his Pokemon, who were all poorly cared for. When Ash was distracted, the trainer slugged at Ash, catching both Ash and Pikachu off guard and tried running away. Before he could give chase, Glaceon popped out of her Pokeball in rage and chased the man down. When he and Ash had caught up to them, the trainer was bruised all over and frozen in a block of ice. Glaceon sat next to the frozen trainer with a completely satisfied smile on her face at the punishment dealt to the trainer that dared to hurt her friend. That was a fun situation for Ash to explain to Officer Jenny. Pikachu figured he would have to talk to Glaceon soon about tuning down her protective nature a bit, he didn't want her scaring away the chance for Ash to finally have a mate. Annabelle was a trustworthy person and he knows that she will love Ash unconditionally. Then again, the same could be said for Cynthia. Ash may not have noticed it, but he saw the way Cynthia looks at Ash. Sorry about that, Annabelle, Ash apologized as he gained control of his blush. He actually enjoyed holding the Battle Frontier girl's hand, though he will keep that to himself. It just felt so warm and inviting. It felt like it fit perfectly in his grip, that it belonged there. It's fine, Ash, Annabelle stuttered as she held her hand close to her chest. She took deep breaths as she tried to control her rapidly beating heart. She really didn't want to let go of his hand, she adored the connected feeling that was there. Her empathy ability being its best with the skin contact. Where are anyway? Paul asked as he looked around in slight awe. He had to admit, the place looked breathtaking. The vast field, the clear water, even all the strong-look Pokemon. This is a training field I took up when I arrived to the island, Ash replied. I decided to use it to let my Pokemon enjoy the free space and a great training spot. They stay here while I decide who to use when I go to battle. Annabelle was in awe at the amount of powerful Pokemon that were here. It wasn't an amount that made it impossible to maintain, but nowhere near a small amount too. Well, he is a champion now. I mean that Gardevoir's skills in that battle earlier was absolutely amazing. Even the Glaceon was nothing to laugh about. She has never seen a Pokemon battle like those two did. Ash took a deep breath, sensing a familiar aura signature make its way into the clearing. Looking to the left, he saw his mother along with his sister and Tai. I'm going to assume you guys are finished, Ash asked them, keeping from making eye contact with Delia. He still felt that dark grip reach for his heart when around his mother. Maybe this wasn't a good idea after all. Yeah, we just put the last of her bags away with the help of our Pokemon, Alex said cheerfully. Ash smiled at his sister's excitement. Tai nodded his head. Yeah, it wasn't difficult or anything and it helped that she didn't bring too much with her like I was dreading. It was true, Delia had barely brought anything with her, mostly Pokemon food, clothing and a bag she kept close to her as they packed. Ash nodded. Thank you guys, and as for you Delia, Ash said as he turned his gaze to his mother, feeling that dark feeling grow even stronger. You have use of this training field and are free to come and go as you please. I will not restrict your movements as you are a person, not something for me to control. You can train here, relax here, whatever you want. But, you are not, and I repeat not to bring any of my ex-friends anywhere near here under any circumstance. His aura spiked as he spoke, causing the wind around him to pick up slightly and blow his hair through the wind. The feeling caused them all to sweat slightly and his sister to gulp slightly. Delia did not flinch and continued to stare into Ash's slightly glowing eyes. Also, Ash continued. You are not to tell them where I am or that you even spoke to me. I want them away from me and away from my life. Failure to follow these rules will result in you being thrown out both this training area and out of my room. Delia nodded her head in understanding of her son's rules, she didn't want to ruin the one chance she had to be with her son again. Good, Ash said. Welcome to the group. Welcome to the group then, I guess. Alex smiled widely at Delia while Tai nodded his head in her direction. Gardevoir used Psychic on herself and floated in front of Delia and looked at her closely. After a minute of her circling Delia and then staring into her eyes, Gardevoir gave a warm smile and held her hand out. Gardevoir, the embrace Pokemon said as everyone looked to Ash for a translation. She said it's nice to meet you, he replied to their silent question. Remembering his other two guests, Ash gestured to them. Oh yeah, I have some people for you all to meet. He points to the two confused, and one annoyed, trainers. The girl with the purple hair is Anal Shinji and she's a frontier brain from the Kanto region. Annabelle blushed brightly at the sudden attention from the others. Gesturing to Paul, Ash smirked. The stuck-up prude who looks like he ate something sour, don't worry he always looks like that, is Paul Shinji, an arrival of mine during my travels in the Sinnoh region. Alex giggled and Tai bit his lip to hold back his own laughter. Delia and Annabelle giggled into their hand, though Delia wanted to reprimand him for talking like that to someone who seems to be his friend. Paul glared at Ash, feeling the powerful urge to punch him. Screw you Ketchum, he replied. Ash just gave Paul a smug look, until Gardevoir lightly smacked him in the back of the head. Don't be so mean, Ash, Gardevoir chastised her trainer with a light yet stern glare. Ash rubbed the back of his head as he looked at the embrace Pokémon in mock hurt. I was only joking with him, Gardevoir, Ash said as the psychic fairy crossed her arms at him, looking like a mother-mom that was lecturing her son for bullying his younger sibling. The scene caused Ash's Pokémon to snicker at their trainer being chastised by his own Pokémon. Okay, enough, Ash said as he turned to his other Pokémon. The tournament will continue tomorrow, so we will use today for a bit more training. I already know our opponent and he seems to be skilled trainer from what I heard of his other battles. In the end though, we will win. His Pokémon roared out their approval, ready to get stronger so they can win and advance. He's got the right idea, Tai said. I should get some practice in while I have the chance. He turned and ran off. I'll be back later tonight. Alex turned to Delia. Would you like to join me for some training? She asked the mother for two reasons. One was to be nice to the woman that helped saved her Umbreon, and second to allow Ash some breathing room since it was obvious that he was still uncomfortable around Delia. Looking at Ash with longing, Delia turned her gaze to Alex and gave her a sad smile. As his mother, she could tell instantly that Ash was not comfortable with her nearby. Knowing it would only make things worse if she pushed it right now, she nodded at Alex. I would like that. The two girls walked off, heading to a different area where they were far enough to be out of view of Ash, but close enough to alert him if Shadow were to return. We should go to Annabelle, Paul said. Reggie is mostly at the docks by now waiting for us. Right, I forgot about that, Annabelle replied. We got to go, Ash. She really didn't want to go, she wanted to spend more time with the man that stole her heart. Ash smiled and nodded, I understand. Well, you know where I am most of the time if you need me or just want to relax. You guys are more than welcome to come visit me. Paul nodded and began walking away without another word. Annabelle looked to Ash, having an inner debate. Ash was about to ask her what was wrong before she rose up and kissed him on his cheek. Annabelle quickly ran off, her face bright red. Bye, Ash, she yelled as she ran to catch up to her brother. I did it. I can't believe I actually kissed him. Ash watched them leave, eyes as wide as dinner plates. His hand subconsciously rubbed the cheek that was kissed. Her lips were as soft as a mareep's wool, he thought, causing his blush to brighten. Ash shook his thoughts away. He turned to his Pokémon and saw a majority of them were grinning at him amusement, some in confusion, and some were frowning. Glaceon. Enough gawking, Ash yelled as his blush returned. It's time to get back to work. Start breaking off into groups. Following his orders, his Pokémon broke apart. Some helping others get better with certain skills, or attacks. Some of the more senior members were teaching the younger ones. As this was happening, Ash never took notice of the red eyes that watched him from the shadows of tree, eyes that vanished as if they were never there in the first place. Unknown location. High above the clouds, invisible to the human eye, floated a sphere that moved at high speeds. The sphere was a powerful golden color that shone brightly with power. Heading towards the sphere at equally high speeds was a very determined Latias. This Latias was the one that lived in Altos, before deciding to travel with Ash after he came to visit after so long. She was so very happy when he came by, just like when she met him. She loved being around Ash, his aura was just so warm and inviting. Add to the fact that he risked his life to help protect her from the revived Aerodactyl and Kabutops, he was everything she ever wanted in a friend. She couldn't hold back anymore when he visited, she had to leave. Ever since her brother died and Bianca leaving for college, in the art program, she had been so very lonely. After getting permission from her caretaker Lorenzo, with the condition that she comes to visit from time to time, Latias joined Ash on his journey. She couldn't be any happier with her choice. She has grown much stronger since the incident, made a lot of new friends, got to see a lot of new places that she didn't even know existed, and now has a huge family. Now though, Ash has asked her to report to Arceus and the Pokémon Council. Ash would have gone, but he needed to watch over the others, along keeping an eye on the island. Getting close to the sphere, Latias shrouded herself in her psychic power and entered the sphere. Upon entering the sphere, Latias found herself in a completely new realm. The blue sky was no longer there, replaced by a swirl of both gold and light purple. The area looked long and wide, showing no end in sight. This was the Hall of Origins, the meeting place of the strongest Pokémon to live. In the middle of the large room was a large table. Floating by the table were the most powerful Pokémon in existence. There were even the original Pokémon, the deities that shaped the world to what it is now along with the god of all Pokémon, Arceus. To his left was the Pokémon ruler of time, Dialga. Beside him was the Pokémon that governed over space, Palkia. It continued to Giratina, and after him were every legendary Pokémon that exists that were the strongest of their specific species. This line of legends continued until it ended to the right of Arceus, and that honor was given to Mew, who is the ancestor of all Pokémon. Latias looked at the powerful Pokémon and took notice that two Pokémon were missing from the table, Ho-Oh and Kyogre. Kyogre missing isn't too much of a surprise since he's missed many meetings before, not feeling very comfortable out of water for long periods of time, though he can breathe just fine in this dimension. Ho-Oh missing was strange though, since the rainbow Pokémon rarely misses a meeting. In fact, Ho-Oh is usually always punctual. Bowing in respect to the powerful Pokémon, Latias still couldn't help but to be awed by the fact that she was in the presence of such powerful Pokémon, the most powerful Pokémon. Among the council was another Latias, this one infinitely more powerful than Ash's, who was the first one to speak up. "Hello young one," the most powerful Latias said with such grace, it felt being among royalty. "It is a pleasure, and a surprise, to see you once more." The last time she saw Ash's Latias was when Ash last visited the council. Ash's Latias smiled brightly at her cousin Pokémon. "Hello to you Lady Latias." While not one for formality, she couldn't but to show the incredibly powerful Eon Pokémon respect. "Ash sent me here for a report and to make a request." This got the attention of all the legendary Pokémon, since Ash is their champion and Arceus chosen. Arceus gave the trainer-owned Eon Pokémon a nod to continue. Latias went on to tell the Pokémon Council about Ash's aura training, their travels, and about all of the Pokémon they helped. She told them about Ash being found at Mt. Silver and the tournament they are now participating in. "We are advancing well through the battles, as expected, and are showing why we are the champions Pokémon of the Kalos region," Latias stated, proud of her trainer and fellow Pokémon. The legends looked on in joy at the tale of their champion. They felt immense pride as they heard of Ash's accomplishments. Arceus was no fool though, as he listened to her tales he took notice of the tournament. While traitors they may be, Ash's former friends were skilled trainers and would no doubt be there too. Knowing of his anger towards them, he was worried that something that he thought would never come up would awaken. He really hoped it would not come down to that. "What of Ash now, Latias?" Arceus asked Ash's legendary psychic, dragon type. "How are things going currently?" He had to be sure. Latias looked down slightly before she looked up in worry. "Ash has been having terrible, recurring nightmares. They leave him out of breath and shaking each morning. We have no clue what's causing it, but it leaves Ash terrified. Also, me and Mewtwo have sensed two powerful dark presences on the island. One seems to come and go, almost impossible to track, so its source is currently unknown. The other." Latias paused as she was afraid to admit this herself. The second presence comes from Ash himself. Latias's words caused all of the legends to look on in either surprise or worry. Ash is a generally happy and caring person. He loved to help both Pokémon and people in need. Plus with his strong aura, those dark emotions might mix in and that won't bode well for anyone. Arceus looked very alarmed, worry easily identifiable on his face. This is not good, not one bit. Ash is not ready to go against it just yet. Latias, I need you to tell me everything this instant. Do not leave a single detail out. At the command of the god Pokémon, Latias launched into a full detailed explanation of Ash's nightmares, when they started, and the fact Ash had encountered the traitors, and his reactions to it. She also told them how Ash's aura has been fluctuating and changing between its blue color to a black color. The moment she started talking about the black aura, all the legends gasped loudly as Arceus grew slightly fearful. He did not want to believe that that aura was returning. Ash was betrayed, that much is true, along with the pain that goes with it, but it was far from the extent for that to awaken. He's not ready to fight against its dark influence if it has truly awakened. Are you certain, Latias? Are you 100% certain that young Ash's aura changed black? Ash's Latias nodded with a concerned look on her face. How couldn't she worry, when some of the strongest creatures in existence seems to be terrified of what's happening to her best friend? Yes, Lord Arceus, even Mewtwo and Lucario can confirm that Ash's aura has changed multiple times. What's going on? Is Ash going to be okay? What does any of this mean? If it's true, then what should we do, Lord Arceus? Dialga asked Arceus. We can't allow another on them to show itself. But this is Ash we are talking about here. Zapdos yelled out as lightning sparked around his body. We can't just ignore everything that he has done for us. I agree with Zapdos, chimed in Keldeo, who jumped onto the table from his seat next to Virizion. I wouldn't be here right now without Ash. He gave me my confidence back so I could face Lord Kuram and save my teachers. I owe Ash everything. But Dialga is not wrong either, spoke up Palkia. It's true that Ash has done a lot for us, but we can't risk another one of them to raise again. The risks, with someone like Ash's potential, is too great to ignore. Not to mention that there already is a great shift in the air around us, Kuram spoke out. To have to handle this threat along with Ash becoming one of them is not recommended. But we will need Ashes in facing this threat, the most powerful Latias argued. He has the potential to be even more powerful than Sir Auron himself. He has yet to truly unlock his aura's full capabilities, and it's already powerful enough to allow him to take on multiple Pokémon on his own. To lose such potential will surely weaken us. Many legends nodded in agreement to her words, as it did make sense. Unfortunately, sister, the Latios to her right countered. The same could be said in reverse as well. If he truly falls and gives into it, we have an enemy that is more powerful than Sir Auron. Not to mention that according to what we have heard so far, Ash is too weak to resist its dark influence. The evidence being that he has already given into it multiple times and is only now barely holding it back. In his defense, came the voice of Mesprit. We never told him about it, not expecting a result like this. Ash is fighting against it blindly, only knowing that he's fighting an emotion that he has trouble understanding. Emotions are very powerful and impossible to run from. It always be there, no matter how deep you try to bury them or ignore them. Even not knowing, he's fighting it well, though it has a deep grip already. Mesprit does pose a good point, Celebi said, floating next to Keldeo. Ash is fighting an inner, unknown enemy that many have fallen to before. Ash isn't tempted easily, evident by the chances he's had to join organizations like Team Rocket and so on. In those cases, he knows his enemy and knows the evil that is brought by them. In this case, he has no such knowledge other than its evil. Plus, for someone who doesn't know what he's fighting, he's rather well at holding it back. At the emotion and time travel Pokemon's words, murmuring and agreements could be heard. As they spoke about what should be done, Arceus looked over to the Mew next to him with curiosity. It's not often that his twin sister stays this quiet for long. Yes, Mew is the twin sister to the god Pokemon. It's not well known, but two Pokemon were birthed from the same egg that shaped the universe. Arceus was birthed from the pure power that the egg created, while Mew actually formed from the leftover dense energy that was more chaotic in nature. Creation and destruction were birthed from that egg. The world was so vast to the two Pokemon, yet they were the only two lifeforms around. Mew was lonely since Arceus wasn't the playful or energetic type like she was. They decided to use their powers and gave life to the world, by creating the legends. By use of his mighty power, Arceus created the main legendary deities of the world. Giratina, Palkia, and Dialga were born. In her excitement, Mew wanted more playmates to have around. Arceus, being a sucker for Mew, he used Mew's DNA to create the different types of Pokemon of the world of that era. He even created a few other Mews, though much weaker, so she could have someone to relate to more easily. The Pokemon of the world were actually born to be playmates of Mew. It's one of the main reasons that you almost never find a Pokemon deny to be Mew's playmate, even if it's for a little while. Changing his typing to a psychic type, Arceus used its telekinetic power to talk to Mew mentally. What are you thinking about, sister? Arceus asked Mew, who upon hearing his voice, looked at the god Pokemon. Hey brother, she responded. I just think that this is all too weird, even for aura users. For Ash to unconsciously awaken dark aura of that power, even when betrayed, is just too unusual. There have been aura users who have gone through worse pain and yet that aura remained dormant. So you two believe that this is too convenient? Arceus inquired. Mew was right, Ash shouldn't have been able to awaken that aura, and even if he did, it should not be at such a powerful level. I feel like there is something we are missing here, brother, Mew said. Something both important and dangerous. So what should we do? Arceus asked. As much as a risk it may be, Mew began. We need Ash right now. If we lose him due to fear, then whatever is coming will cause nothing but chaos. The shift isn't from Ash, that much I am certain about. Arceus nodded at his twin's words as he pondered on their next course of action involving Ash. After a few moments of silent thought, Arceus came to a final decision. Needing their attention, Arceus released a small amount of his godly power. The effect was instantaneous as all conversation halted and everyone looked at the most powerful Pokémon, though Ash's Latias was shaking slightly from how much that small amount of power dwarfed her full power. I have listened to everyone's opinions regarding our champion, he said as he looked at the legends. I have taken into account of your fears and your beliefs and have come to a decision for our next course of action. His words caused all of the legends to lean forward, as they awaited their god's verdict. Ash's Latias was mentally begging that they would not try to harm Ash. Stronger than her or not, she will defend her best friend to the end. Ash is too much of a risk to be left alone, Arceus said with authority. This caused every Pokémon in the room to lower their heads in sadness, even the ones who spoke out against Ash. Even though their words may say otherwise, they care deeply for the young champion. They just had their duty as the legendary council of the Hall of Origins to make sure that the world is protected and balanced, even if it's against their own loved ones or someone they're cared for. However, Arceus continued, gaining the attention of his fellow legends. Ash is in just as much danger as we are and he never abandoned us when we needed someone. Also, Mesprit and Celebi made valid points about young Ash fighting that power's influence without knowing what he's fighting. Ash is too valuable to lose, but we can't have him move around so freely either. That's why he will be watched, and as he shows he's too much of a threat of falling, then he is to be eliminated. The legends nodded at the god Pokémon's verdict, seeing it fair and well thought out. This was basically a trial period for Ash, to see if he could keep himself together. After all that he's done for the world, Ash deserved the chance to prove himself. Looking to the legendary sent by Ash, Arceus continued. You Latias, along with Ash's other legends, are to watch over him and report back to us. How long this little trial lasts will depend on Ash's actions. You are also not to tell him as of yet, so we can accurately determine if Ash is a threat or not. Latias nodded her head in understanding of her orders. Well, if that is all, Arceus began this meeting, but was interrupted by Ash's Latias, who just remembered she had one more urgent message. I have one more thing to report, she said in a surprisingly serious tone. There is the matter of the second dark presence that we have recently discovered as a man by the name of Shadow. He has shown to be extremely dark with a range of dangerous abilities. The other legends listened carefully as Latias listed off Shadow's known powers. He created a creature that could conduct electricity and probably the other elements as well. He's able to push away and damage multiple high-level Pokémon with ease, and his most fearsome ability. She paused for a moment as she got her thoughts together. He has the ability to eat Pokémon. This last power caused them to look at the Eon Pokémon in confusion since the consumption of Pokémon wasn't anything new. What I mean by that is that he uses a chain to rip the target's soul out of their body. He then proceeds to swallow it whole. This caused all of their eyes to widen in shock and slight fear at the words. Only Yveltal has that type of power. Where did a mortal learn to do something like that? It gets worse, Latias continued. He's really good at hiding himself as not even Mewtwo can sense him. He's ruthless, uncaring, cold, calculating, and intelligent while also being an exceptional battle as he held back two Pokémon. One belonging to the Elite Four member Alex and a trainer on par with a top gym leader who happens to be Ash's mother, Delia. He held them both off with only one Gengar, that he proceeded to kill when it lost the match. We may need help dealing with this man. Silence reigned through the room as the current information on Shadow went through their minds. None of that sounded like Aura. Not even Aura could copy the power of the Pokemon of destruction and death. How could that human have a power like that? Looking to each other, they nodded with a serious expression on their faces. Big brother, Mew spoke aloud, gaining everyone's attention. A power like that in the hands of a human is very dangerous and should be handled carefully. I'm worried of what may occur should this shadow feel like he's being cornered, especially with his complete disregard of life that he seems to have. Nodding his head, Arceus returned his attention to the waiting Latias. You and your fellow Pokemon are to continue searching for this man, but you are not to engage unless absolutely necessary. The power he uses couldn't be Aura, at least none that have ever seen. That shocked Latias and the rest of the council greatly, except Mew. Arceus and Mew have been around since the very beginning and it's almost impossible for something to occur that they have not seen or heard of before. But we can't just wait around for that man to strike. Giratina spoke in an angry and powerful tone. The damage he could cause with just the powers we have seen could be catastrophic. Not to mention he would be difficult to find again. For now, Mew responded as she regarded the renegade Pokemon. Waiting is our best option while we search for information regarding this power of shadows. Looking to Arceus, Mew addressed her elder twin. I think it would be best as we go and consult the unknowns, maybe they have something that we missed or are not getting. Unknowns were the messengers of the Hall of Origins, created by Arceus to catalog information from way in the past. They could see glimpses of the future, past, and present and can catalog the information to be used. In fact, it was the unknowns that created the Chosen One prophecy, not Arceus. Alone, they are just information holders and not much for fighting, which was the point, so humans don't hunt them down but get enough together and they are extremely powerful. Powerful enough to warp reality to a dreamland where anything is possible. Arceus nodded his head. Agreed sister, he said as he addressed the other legends. Shadow will not be confronted if avoidable. You are to spy and gather information and report back to all of us. Am I understood? Everyone nodded at the order. Good, you are all dismissed. Every legend made their way out of the Hall of Origins and returned to their respective domains. Latias exited the sphere and realized that it was now night as the moon hung brightly in the sky. Latias watched as the lunar Pokemon, Cresselia, flew across the cooled sky. Turning around, Latias watched as the orb she left flew at a heightened pace before slowly vanishing from her sight. Latias turned around once more and took off at a high speed as she made her way back to Ash. She really hoped nothing happened to make whatever is happening to Ash become even worse. Or else the battle will become one of survival against the legends themselves.